What's up, everybody? Welcome to the horrorheadspodcast. I am Rich Mallery here with my co-host Jerry Lourenco.
Friday the fucking 13th, Rich.
Hell yeah! December 13th is Friday the 13th, and we thought we would celebrate by talking about some Friday the 13th movies today. So we picked out like 4 that we felt encapsulated the series pretty well, and just ones that some of which we liked, one of which we probably don't. So we're gonna do Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 4, Jason X, and the 2009 remake. You can follow us on Instagram at horrorheadspodcast, or email us your love and hate at horrorheadspodcast@gmail.com. So usually we do a little bit of banter and then we kind of get into the drinking, but today I want to start drinking immediately. And not because I want to get drunk, just because what we're drinking tonight needs to be as cold as possible, and the warmer it gets, the grosser it's going to get. And what I mean by that is we're not drinking whiskey or bourbon tonight. We decided to kick it old school, and for some reason we're going to drink some 40s. And the reason why we're doing this, other than we're just insane, is back in the day, like when we kind of started Horror Heads, for those of you who don't know, who didn't listen to our first episode, we kind of started Horror Heads as a website years ago, where we were doing film reviews and interviews and stuff, and we did it for a while, and then it got kind of too big, and we just didn't have time for it. And back then, we were drinking, we didn't have a lot of money, we were drinking 40s, and I think if you were under the age of 30 in either the early to late 90s or early 2000s and you were broke like us, you were probably drinking a 40, and you were probably drinking a 40 of Old English. Now, we tried to find Old English 40s, and I went to probably 6 different places and could not find them. I don't know if they don't exist anymore or if you just can't find it. So I'm not drinking that. I am drinking something that's pretty similar, I think. I'm drinking Mickey's Fine Malt Liquor, a 40 ounce of that. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit terrified because I haven't had a beer in like 2 years because I'm not a big fan of beer. I haven't had malt liquor probably in like 10, and I am just terrified by how gross this is. So every sip tonight is going to be brutal, but we will get through these 40s by the end of the day. And I know, Jerry, I know you didn't go malt liquor. You went, I'm going to say, the pussy route and got something else. What do you got there?
No, I have some Budweiser here and I actually really
Ugh.
like it. I'm a huge fan. I drink Budweiser a lot. I like to have like, a nice bottle of Budweiser if I'm drinking some like whiskey neat. Kind of reminds me of a dive bar. It's pretty cool. But hey, just like you, I probably went to like 5 or 6 different stores. I was at like gas stations. I was at the bodega. I went everywhere. I could not find a 40 ounce on Long Island. And finally, actually, where I get my gas, I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let me just try this one more place. I know they have refrigerators in there. So I walked in. They don't have shit. And then I see on the bottom corner, I'm like, that looks like a very large beer. I was thinking it was going to be a 22. I picked it up. It was a 40. So this is all I could find. I'm going to tell you, I'm not mad about it though, because I actually love it. So
So you're drinking something that you love. I'm drinking something that I know I'm going to hate.
it
So it's gonna be a lot of
happens.
fun.
It
But like, it's
happens.
funny. Like, I could find there's tons of places that have 40s out here, but again, it's 40s of Modelo or
Mm.
Budweiser. You can't really find a lot of 40s with malt liquor, at least in the places that I went. So I got actually excited for a second when I found this, and then when I realized, I was like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be so excited.
Mm.
All right, so let's get to it, because again, the
Let's
longer we wait, the grosser this is going to get. So I'm going to crack open this 40 and sip it.
Here we go. Gonna celebrate 40s the 13th. Cheers.
Oh God.
Oh man, that is cold and icy. Hell
Okay,
yes.
like, you know what? Like, so far, like, it's gross, but I'm gonna maintain it because it's cold. The fact that it's cold is helping. And again, when we get to the hour mark, and when I get halfway through this and it's warm, ooh, it's gonna get bad. I also think one thing about beer too, I feel like gets me drunk different than whiskey. I think I get more drunk off of beer, which is maybe why I don't. Even though I don't know, maybe because I drink it faster. I don't know what it is, but this is gonna be an interesting one today.
Quick, chug it, chug it. Let's go.
Hmm.
Let's go. Come on.
Oh no, I can't chug. I can't chug beer for shit. I'm definitely not one who could do that.
All
Anything
right.
involving chugging, not for me. So anyway, so before we get to the Friday 13th, I did watch a couple of recent movies. I just want to talk about really quick. I watched this one like new Blumhouse thriller called The Passenger, and the guy from Smile is in it, who plays like her cop ex-boyfriend. And it's basically like this one guy, they all work at this fast food place, and this one nerdy kid's getting bullied. And then the guy from Smile just freaks out and just kills everybody in the burger place, and then takes this kid on like a day long trip to make him a man. And it started off really, really cool. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then it just got really boring really fast. And like, there's a lot of talking. The one actor, not the smile guy, the other guy's super annoying. I wouldn't, it's all right. It's like watchable, but like, nothing really happens. And then I watched this other one that's new from Lionsgate called It's either called The Bagman or Bagman, and it's about this monster that kidnaps kids and throws them in a sack and then I think eats them. I forget. It was okay. It was like decent, watchable, scary movie. Kind of predictable. The main character is really, really annoying, the lead male, but it's all right. It's worth watching if you need something to check out. So that was Bagman and Passenger. Both, whatever, okay movies. Like nothing special, but you need something to watch, go for it.
Yeah, I saw The Passenger. I thought it was okay. Definitely kind of lags towards the end. A lot of cool things I liked about it. I thought it had a really cool like atmosphere. I kind of liked when they were in the diner and that whole scene. I liked a lot of things from it. But yeah, I mean the way it starts with like such a bang that you're thinking this is probably going to be the craziest film I've ever watched. But that's probably the most exciting part is is the beginning. I didn't watch too much. It was a very short week for me. I forgot that we were recording today, so I had to play a little catch up. As you know, I just watched a couple of Wrong Turns. I watched Wrong Turn 2 and 3, and I'm gonna say they're both okay. I think they're a good franchise that probably doesn't get as much love as they should. And I know we were kind of discussing this. That's probably like the killer. They're kind of gross and not really like a sexy killer like Jason or Michael Myers or even Ghostface or something like that. So, you have to kind of be in a certain mood to kind of watch like that type of horror, but you know what? I think they really deliver for what they are. They are a good kind of slasher film and kind of gives you everything you want. So I recommend those.
Yeah, and it's like there is a fan base for him because they did make seven of them. But I agree. That's kind of I think it's a franchise that gets slept on. If you're into like just want to watch a slasher movie and watch a bunch of people get killed and some nudity and just like kind of like just a fun kind of movie, I definitely would recommend them. They're not all good, but some of them are pretty decent for slashers. I'm definitely a fan of the Wrong Turn movies. I think they get better after the first one. The first one is a very different movie, I think, than the rest of them. Like I think the first one's a little more mainstream, and then they kind of go more into like cult slasher kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of stars in the, original. After that, I mean, the budget's probably cut like in fifth, and you could tell. But I think the quality goes down, but I think the excitement goes up as you watch them as they progress. I mean, there's definitely some cool ones, and they'll never let you down for like a gory, crazy, or even original kill that maybe you've never seen before. I mean, the ones I watched were absolutely bonkers. The things that were happening and the way people were meeting their demise. I mean, they were getting thrown into like giant meat grinders, and you just don't see that every day. You don't see
Meat
that in every
grinder.
film. So it was definitely crazy. I'm probably when I get a little bit more time, revisit, some more of them.
One thing I have to talk about drinking this beer is I'm probably gonna be burping a lot, and I apologize because it's already
Gotta hit
kind
that
of
mute.
hitting me. Oh yeah, it's yeah. I'm gonna try my best to hit mute, but this is gonna be difficult. All right, so we're gonna be talking today about Friday the 13th Part 2 for Jason X and the remake. Why did we not pick Part 1 to start with? One is like I don't think we're like really big fans of that one, to be honest with you. Like I always think that I don't like it. And then I watch it and I'm like, okay, it's not that I don't like it. It's just not one of my favorites. It's like okay. It's like it's an okay slasher movie. Part two, though, again, it's where we first meet Jason. It's very special to me too because that is what I believe or what I tell people. It's the first like real horror movie I ever watched as a kid. I remember like getting like a VHS of it and watching it late one night, and that's what kind of really got me into horror. I think was just seeing this movie. So it definitely like stays with me. So let's talk about well, how do you feel about the original?
I get caught up watching these Friday the 13th marathons like all the time on like HBO or like Showtime or something like that. So I catch it like literally all the time. So I probably just watched this probably 3 weeks ago. Just seems like every month they're just playing these films on one of those two providers. And when I'm home and I just have something on the background, I usually put on something like this. The original Friday the 13th, I like it. It's just not me. It's definitely it's probably a better film than part two and the rest of the ones that we're going to talk about. It's a well-made film. It's probably a little bit like artistic. It has like some merit to it. It has some real acting in it. It has real actors. I think Kevin Bacon is in it. He's not even like a main character. So I mean, this is a pretty, big cast, but I'm gonna be honest. I find it boring. It's the foundation to the rest of these, but I mean, kind of like how we were talking about in the Terrifier episode, I want to see the killer, I want to see Jason, and I want to see what Jason we're gonna get, and I want to see what Jason's going to do, and I think that's probably my favorite part about these films, and that was definitely missing from the first one. So that's, obviously I'm not gonna like it as much.
Yeah, and like I said, I watched it the other day, and I think that's the difference, right? It's in all of the other ones we're watching Jason kill a bunch of people, and in this one it's kind of more POV. You don't know who the killer is. I mean, we know because we've seen the movie, but they definitely keep it hidden, and it's kind of very similar to like a Black Christmas kind of like vibe as to how it kind of plays. And yeah, there's just something about it that maybe it's a better film, but it doesn't grab me. There is one thing that I noticed, and I haven't seen this movie in a while, but speaking of Kevin Bacon. He does have a love scene in it, and there is a very interesting shot where it is a close up just of his ass with the girl squeezing it. And by close up, I mean my entire fucking 65-inch TV was Kevin Bacon's ass. Like there's no negative space. It's just they like put the camera literally right on his ass, and I'm like, what an interesting, bizarre, perverted shot to put in this movie. Like you could have the camera anywhere, and it's right there. So if you want to see that, then check out the original. But let's move on
I mean,
from
that's why
Kevin
I
Bacon's
watch
ass.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, every time you see Kevin Bacon's ass, you gotta take a sip.
So yeah, so I did rewatch a bunch of these just like for context, just to talk about them. But let's talk about part two, which came out in 1981, and it starts with Alice, who is the survivor of the original, kind of doing a bunch of stuff in her house, and we first get introduced to Jason as he puts an ice pick through her head, and then moves on to go back to the camp and stalk the teenagers. Was it's interesting about these movies is because they all do feel like have a certain pattern, but there's like these interesting things in them where you're like, ooh, that seems like a weird thing for Jason to do. Like he left his camp, found this woman that got away, like tracked her down in the middle of like a normal town, broke into her house and killed her, and then goes back to the camp to like cause mayhem. It just seems like odd, like an odd thing for him to do, but I get they want to set up this cold open like scene.
Yeah, I don't know if they were still kind of like working on like the lore of Jason at that time, but literally my first note is it feels very Halloweenish to start, and not only like with the look, but also with the planning and the stalking and the actual targeting the victim. I mean, we have to assume they're like in New Jersey, which is not really rural. I don't know if he like took a cab to get there. It
He
is
would have had to have. He would have
1982.
had to have.
Yeah, I really don't know like how he got there. I don't know if it was like walking distance away, but just like the shots of like Jason walking through the streets and jumping on the puddles and stuff like that. It just had like this very Halloweenish vibe. And I don't know if that's kind of like what they thought about. And like maybe like let's just go with like a formula that works as we start this new series. That's really like my first impression. And then my second impression is that Alice, that nightmare recap from part one. I mean, God, they must show like 15, 20 minutes from
I
that
wrote that
film.
down. It's like 6 minutes of part one. Yeah, it's the first 6 minutes are basically part one.
Yeah, I mean it's an 80-minute film. You showed like, a tenth of it, in a recap. And I don't know if they were just trying to like extend the length of this one, but it just really went on for a long time. And strange way to start the film because honestly, it takes you right out of it. just because it's like, all right, I saw this before. Can we move on? Can you show me something I haven't seen yet? And it does take a little while. I mean, only 6 minutes. It feels like 10, 15. I don't know, but I trust you.
Yeah, it's interesting when you go back and like rewatch these, right? Because you've seen these 100 times and like you don't really think about it. And I never really thought about that. I'm like, this makes no sense for him to do this. And it's funny because the producers and director of the original, they did not want to make this movie because they're like, that's dumb. Like, because this takes place 5 years after the original, and they're like, so Jason was just kind of hiding out in the woods for 5 years, then all of a sudden he decides to like start killing. Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but again, who really cares? Like it's Friday the 13th. And I believe at this point he's supposed to be 17 years old, which I never realized before either. I always thought he was just a little bit older. But when they do the timeline, when you actually think about it, 5 years, he was like whatever, 12 when he supposedly drowned. Oh, the other funny thing is they're like, if Jason like survived the drowning, like why didn't he like find his mother and tell her he was still alive before
Yeah,
she
where
goes on
was
this
he?
killing spree? Like, did he drown and then just kind of like decided like, I'm just gonna hang out in the woods. I didn't want to go home. So it's like there's so many of these interesting plot holes that you don't think about when you're watching these, especially as a kid. The one thing I'll say too is like, or after the 6 minute recap, when we finally do get to Alice in her home, there's like this opening scene with her where she does ultimately get killed by Jason. There's a lot of jump scares. Like it's like jump scare after jump scare. Like first it's like there's like she opens the shower door and it's like this quick cut, and then like she gets a prank call, which is also interesting. Like did Jason like look up her phone number and then like prank call her and then like like there's not like he had a cell phone. Like he had to be far away to do this. And then there's like she hears like a banging, and then the cat jumps out, and like a bunch of these like it's like jump scare to jump scare. It's actually pretty ridiculous.
It is, and it's also the part I like least about this film. This part of this film I find very, very boring. She's just kind of like laying around on a bed. She takes a shower. She's talking to her mother on the phone. I find it like really boring. And then the parts that they do recap from part one, I just find it like really boring. She's like floating around on like, the boat and like nothing's happening. And she's just kind of like visualizing the same thing over and over again. Definitely, this is, if I wasn't watching it for the podcast and I want to be accurate, normally I would just kind of like cruise right through this and like fast forward it or, just move on because I find this part of this particular one really boring. And for me, this film starts when that couple is in the truck and they're driving to the camp. So Sandra and Jeff, when they're in that big truck, to me that's like really when the film starts. Everything before that, I'm like, "Ugh, can we move on?"
Yeah, but once it gets going, and it's an interesting one again when you look at many of the ones that came later. And in this one, again, he's not supernatural. He's just a 17-year-old guy. He doesn't have the famed hockey mask yet. So he's wearing this burlap sack over his head, which is very similar to Town That Dreaded Sundown. And I'll be honest, I know the hockey mask is iconic, but the burlap sack is so much scarier. Like when you actually think about it, it's just because it's plain. It's just like it's creepy as fuck. The hockey mask, like I know, like you grow up with it and you love it, but like looking back now, I'm like, it just seems kind of silly. And I'm not taking anything away from these movies. Like I love this. I actually do love this movie, and I love some of the other ones too. And I'm a big fan. But like when you think about it, it's like a killer in a hockey mask. It is kind of goofy. Um,
I mean, it offers some sort of protection, I guess.
yeah,
I
I
think
guess
I
it's
think
different. It's different.
the burlap sack is interesting. It just has like the one eye because I guess he has like one kind of wonky eye and he doesn't need the other hole for the two eyes. But I think probably what makes the hockey mask cooler down the road is probably like the full outfit that he's wearing. Here he's kind of wearing like overalls and a plaid shirt and a burlap sack and just kind of taking that. It's not that cool, I guess. Is it
I wouldn't say it's
scary?
cool, but it's creepy.
Definitely. Yeah, it's creepy, but it's not cool. And then later on, when he gets like the mask, like he kind of has like more of like a worker's kind of uniform on. And it just looks cooler, I think, overall. And the mask kind of fits that better. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the burlap sack. I like it.
Yeah. Cool. And look, I mean, there's some like really cool stuff. There's some funny stuff in this movie. Like it's got a little bit of everything. Like the kills are really good. And it's funny when you watch these movies again after watching Terrifier, like just how basic they seem, like with the kills. Like he'll stab somebody once for the most part and then move on. Whereas like you're expecting like stab him like 5 times, like it's just interesting, like a different thing, but also again, much different movie, very different time. So, they weren't thinking about doing these overly violent kind of movies. And I think they were also trying to make it mainstream also, because the first one was fairly successful. And I think they were trying not to go like over the top with the violence, which again, is just like the time period.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there were, a considerable amount of kills, but they weren't that gory or bloody for the most part. And a lot of it was like dark, so you really couldn't necessarily see like maybe what was going on. But I mean, he definitely gets the count up in this one. But yeah, I mean, o overall, I think they were trying to hold on to like probably some elements of the original without really kind of getting into probably what the parts that we really like about Friday the 13th, where it just gets like more brutal and more crazier and more over the top. This one was just it's kind of like walking like that boundary, and I like it. I mean, there was a lot of parts in this film that were likable, a lot of scenes that you could like, a lot of scenes you could get into. I actually could get into like this, this crowd of characters. I mean, they weren't overly like annoying, they were just, they're basic, but they weren't like annoying. And you did find maybe some humor in some of them. Maybe found some things about them that you like, oh, they're nice or whatever. But I mean,
Yeah, they're just
there
normal
was,
kids. They're not like a bunch of assholes,
yeah,
really. Like for the most part, they're just like forgettable regular characters, which again is very different. And I know this was like at 81, very different from a lot of slasher movies where you just everybody's annoying and you can't wait to see everybody die. These are just like normal characters. And I think getting to the brutality, the lack of brutality and the violence, and again, there's plenty of kills. They did, they're trying to get an R rating with this, and they actually did have some issues with getting the R rating. And one of the scenes that they cut down was the spear through the back. So there's a scene where this couple is having sex and Jason puts a spear through both of them. And apparently there were some other shots of that scene that they had to kind of cut because it was deemed too graphic. And one thing I read that I didn't know is in that scene, apparently the actress, uh, they filmed her doing full frontal nudity and then later found out she was only 16 and lied about her age. So they had to cut all of that out.
what? Sandra was only
Yeah.
16?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah,
I
so that
always,
footage is gone, lost forever because they destroyed it because of
wow.
that. But yeah, like that's interesting. Like she just, I back then, I guess they didn't really weren't really overly checking things and said she was 18 and she was
She had
not
some sort of
18.
ID to like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny that they cut that spear, but yet that one scene where that girl Terry goes for a walk and she decides to like skinny dip. That's a fairly long scene and it's kind of drawn out where she's like taking off her clothes like really slowly. She's walking towards the water real slow. She gets in the water slow and then she jumps out of the water to make sure if you didn't catch everything, it's like, they made sure that you like caught that. And then she comes out real slow to make sure like they're capturing like it was basically full, full nudity on that. And I think it was pretty funny when that creepy guy Scott is like kind of like creep in the background. He steals her clothes. It's like what a jerk that guy, it's like
Especially it like had to be freezing out there. Like it looked cold as fuck. Like it's funny, they always do these movies where it's supposed to be summer camp, but it always looks like it's the middle
never
of
looks, it always
winter.
looks like fall,
Yeah,
right? It's like,
yeah,
what are these
yeah.
people doing in that water? It never looks like a hot day where it's like, oh man, you just want to jump in that water. I don't care like what film it is. Like, even if it's supposed to be like the nicest day, how come they never film in the summer when it really is like hot? It does always seem like a fall day. And they're like, all right,
Yeah.
get in. It's like, what?
So I read, I know we're going to talk about the fourth one later, but again, there's another skinny dipping scene, and apparently they shot that in December.
Oh my
The
God.
lake was freezing, and the director was such an asshole that he like made the actress stay in the water in between setups, and apparently she got hypothermia, and the actor who played Jason literally screamed at the director and said like, "I'm quitting if you don't like let her warm up in between shots, and like
Wow.
they ended up doing that. But like it just, I ever hear these stories about some of these directors that are just such assholes to like just mistreat people. It's just crazy. Like it's fucking freezing. Like let her get out of the water for a little bit. Also, that was supposed to be, it was supposed to be a closed set because she's naked, and like the director's like, no, we gotta have a full set because like I want this to go faster or something like that. It's like probably just was being an asshole. Like you didn't need your whole crew for that.
Yeah, I think maybe the mentality was a little bit different. Like in the 80s, that's just the way everyone was kind of treated. And, they didn't worry about like, PR or HR issues back then. So
So what would you say your favorite kill is in this movie? If you had to pick one.
I mean the spear one is good. I think I hate to say it. I mean, I don't know if I
Say it.
want
I
to
know what
say
you're gonna
it, but
say.
I
Say
mean,
it.
I mean, I guess it's probably Mark, who's the guy in the wheelchair, and he's always talking about that he's like in training for something, but he never actually quite says like what he's training for. So I think he's just like talking shit, trying to sound like cool. But yeah, I mean, there's that scene where he's going to hook up with Vicky and she leaves for a minute. We could talk about that in a second. And he's just standing there and I guess he's waiting around a while and he hears like some noise. Instead of just sitting in the damn house, I don't know why, because it's like raining out at this point. He decides to like kind of wheel through the door and he's just like, Vicky, is that you? And he's just like being like dumb out there. And all of a sudden he just gets like a machete right to his face. And I think the way they did that scene was just so crazy because you weren't expecting it to come from the angle that it came from. Like it just kind of came like right in front of him. And like you probably thought like someone was gonna come behind him, but it came like in front of him. It just got like the machete to the face. And then to make it worse, he goes cruising down the stairs. I mean, in the wheelchair, and they just kind of slowed it down at one point, and then they stop it. I mean, just the way they filmed that whole thing just made it like such a crazy kill. And I mean, honestly, who did that back then?
Yeah, it's an
In the
iconic, it's an iconic kill. Like you not only do you killing a person in a wheelchair, which I don't think they would ever do today, unless again, maybe Terrifier 4 would do it, but like most movies are not going to do that. And like they did it, and also they like actually used him being in a wheelchair as like a device, right? Because he's falling down those stairs in the chair. It's crazy. It's like a wild scene. There's some good ones too. There's that one where the guy's like upside down, gets his throat slit. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's Scott.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you know the names because I do not. But there's some actually cool, like there's some interesting writing in it too, because you see so many horror movies where like the person gets in the car and it doesn't start, right? It's always in the 80s, there's always that Volkswagen that doesn't start, which is in real life they actually didn't like work very often. But they set up early on that her car is problematic. So like when it actually happens, like you're not like, oh come on. Like they showed you that this car's a piece of shit and like probably won't start. The other thing I thought that was really cool is like they show like Jason not only like stalks people, but he's like pretty smart too. Like she's one of the I guess like the final girl's like hiding under the bed.
Ginny.
Yeah, Ginny, and doesn't see Jason. And why she doesn't see him is because he's like standing on a chair, like waiting for her. Like he pretends like he leaves and then gets on this chair. And then she crawls out and he's like, ah, and he comes down on her, which is pretty fucking cool. And how she gets discovered is crazy because like she pisses herself and you just see like a yellow stream coming out from under the bed. And I'm sure that's what Jason saw. I was like, oh, that's where she is.
Is that or he smelt it, where I guess we has like a cute sense of
He's a
smell.
hunter.
And I mean, honestly, I never saw that old pretend to leave trick work before, where it's like, oh, let me just shut this door and pretend like I leave. And then the person's like, all right, let me crawl out. I mean, I think he knew damn well that she was like underneath the bed, but then he like probably stood on like the most rickety chair ever. And I thought that was great for like the development of the Jason character because he's not a perfect killer yet. Jason in part four would never risk standing on the chair because the chair could break and maybe his kill will get away. He really like learned how to like do all the right things and avoid all the things that maybe he had to deal with in the earlier films. And this is one of those because he totally misses her. He breaks his pitchfork and she almost gets away. And he would never do that now. Yeah, and I did like the point you brought up about the car. She was in that convertible Volkswagen that wasn't gonna start. And I think that was probably like one of the scariest parts of this film because like the fact that she was in a convertible and he just takes that pitchfork and he sticks it like right through the roof of the car and it basically almost hits her. I mean, and that was like kind of scary because like you really didn't now like you would see that like 100 times, but back then you're just like, she has a roof, she's pretty safe. And he's like, no, I'm going right through it and nothing is safe. And I thought that was like really like a real tense moment of the film. She does get away, and I think what's strange is when she goes kind of like running down the path, she kind of like waits for Jason to catch up and she tries to like kick him in the nuts essentially, and he goes down for like a second and he gets back up, and I just wonder if it probably would have been a better choice for her just to like keep running, and just kind of like
Probably.
all out, yeah, like an all out sprint, if she did have that jump on him instead of like waiting. I feel like she probably could have gotten away.
But where's she gonna run to? That's the only thing. You're in the middle of the woods, right?
Well, I mean, we're assuming that he's not supernatural at this point, so he's not gonna have like that almost animalistic sense of like stalking and catching his prey that I think if she just ran into the woods off the path and hid, probably wouldn't be able to find her, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, we always say that about these movies that take place in the woods. Like the woods are fucking huge, and like just hide someplace in the dark and don't make any noise, and you're probably fine. At least to get make it till the morning. Like you probably could survive a lot of things if, and a lot of times in the movies, like again, they get hung up on like staying on a path, or I would just get deep into the woods where this guy's never gonna find me.
Yeah, I mean, literally 10 feet off the path, no one's ever going to find you because they wouldn't even know what side to look on. And they're just kind of running up the same path that everyone else does. I think if you just walked along the side of it, I mean, that would personally be like my tactics if I was trying to elude a killer like Jason. I mean, obviously, when he gets better at it, you feel like he has a sense and he knows where you're going to go or what you're going to do. And there really is no hiding from him, but I feel like in these like earlier episodes, I mean episodes or these earlier films that he doesn't have that ability and maybe you can hide from him. Like I mean, he didn't know she was behind the tree and about to kick him and things like that. So I mean, I feel like he's showing that he doesn't have that ability yet. Probably could have hid, but probably wouldn't have been as interesting as a movie if she just hid next to a bush and they just filmed her there
For
and
8 hours until morning, and then she just
until
walks back to the
morning.
road, gets picked up. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about like Mark in the wheelchair and
Hmm.
Vicky, who he's gonna hook up with, because I think honestly, there's a lot of like iconic scenes in this film. And I mean, one of my favorite scenes in this film is the bar scene. I just love that whole scene where they're talking. But during that time, Vicky and Mark stay back, and Vicky decides she wants to hook up, with the guy in the wheelchair. And I mean, I think we probably talk about this every single time that we watch this film is why does she leave to change?
Yeah, this is we you and I probably if we could pick one moment in any of the Friday the 13th movies that you and I talk about the most, it's this. And just to set it up, the what's her name again? I'm sorry.
Vicky.
Vicky, like, she wants to like seduce Mark in the wheelchair, which again, nothing wrong with him being in the wheelchair. That's fine. Like he says that his parts work and they're gonna have some fun. But she leaves to go like change her panties, and I think she's wearing like these black, whatever, normal 80s panties, and she takes them off to pull out quote unquote sexy pair that is like these brown panties that are basically the same ones as the black ones. It's like, first of all, brown underwear, like it just
Ooh.
seems like the least sexiest color of underwear you could ever pick. And she like literally holds them up and she's just like, yeah, these are the ones that I'm gonna fucking show Mark and he's gonna go crazy for. It's so fucking funny. And the other thing she does too that I always think is ridiculous is like she's spraying perfume on herself and then she like pulls open her panties and sprays perfume down on her crotch, and it's just
Little
like
dab.
just disgusting. Like, what is wrong with you? But like, I almost think, and also the other thing too is these brown panties like don't even fit her. They look like
Yeah,
they're
they're
too big for her.
horrible.
So like, I think they probably like had. This is my guess. that they had an actual had like a sexy pair, like maybe a red pair or something, and some shit happened. Someone forgot to bring it, or like it got misplaced, and they're like, "Fuck, we got nothing." And someone they probably had like one female crew member. And she's like, oh, "I got these brown panties." Like that's what I'm hoping happened. And I'm hoping they're not like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be sexy," because it wasn't meant to be funny, but it cracks me up every time.
It's
I'm like,
I mean
"Why are you doing that?" Like it makes no sense.
I mean, she leaves. It's raining. It's pouring out. She has to run across the camp to wherever her cabin is. She finds these ugly shit brown baggy underwear that looks like worse than a bathing suit. She puts those on. She changes her nice sweater, puts on an uglier sweater. It's
And like, why are you doing
like
any of this? Like, I don't think Mark gives a fuck. Mark just wants to get a piece. Like, he's not even gonna see it, you know?
It's like, where are you going? You know? And I mean, that was the downfall of both of them. If they just both, well, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if Jason would have like walked in and took them out next, or maybe there's too many people in that particular cabin between the other couple and a bunch of things. Maybe he wouldn't have the opportunity, and he probably would have got some rich if she didn't go and change into the worst underwear that I've ever seen in my entire
Yeah,
life.
it's all her fault. They basically maybe they would have survived. And just a couple other like funny things about this movie too. Like you talk about the bar scene, and yeah, that is an interesting scene.
I love that
But I,
scene.
I love that there's that redheaded character that ends up surviving because he's
Ted.
just like, yeah, he's like, you know what? He's like everybody's gonna go back to the cabins, and he's like, I'm actually gonna stay here and get drunk, and like he stays and survives while everybody goes back and gets murdered. I love that. Like. Like, what was the point of his character? I don't really know, but I think it's funny that like he easily could have like gone back with them. He would have been the first to die, but he's like, and he already looked like he already had like 7 or 8 beers. Like, there's like a row of just dead soldiers in front of him.
Dude
He's trying
was
to hook up with that
trash.
bartender. He's trying to hook up.
I mean, he was trying to do something, and honestly, that bar scene is like my dream. It's like I want to go and live that in my life. I want to go to that bar on a rainy night and hang out with the locals and drink some Budweiser and whiskey with them and get like fucked up. I mean, that's like I just love the whole atmosphere of that scene, and I love the part where Ginny is sitting there and she's talking to um I just said his name and I forgot it already. Oh, Ted and Paul. And she's talking about like basically, the legend of Jason and what it must have been like for Jason and to see his mother killed. And she was feeling all sorry for him and he didn't know what death was and all this stuff. And she's like, what do you guys think about all that? And she was like having like this big moment. And the guy Paul's like, I think you're drunk, and they just kind of laugh at her. And I thought that was like such a funny part because she was doing a little drunk talking. I mean, she was drinking and getting emotional, thinking about like this crazy kid basically that's like running around the woods, like animalistic and stuff like that. And she's like kind of, thinking about him and what he's going through. And I thought that was like such a funny part to like, yeah, you're drunk. It was just so good.
And I know we're like kind of making fun of this movie because you kind of have to, but like I'm not saying I don't love this movie because I do, but it is like again I probably see this movie 50 times like and it's like you gotta poke fun at it. The other thing too that's in this movie and it's in part four too, and it's in a lot of these kind of movies is there'll be like a group of people who like go on vacation quote unquote or like they're in a cabin in the woods and it's like supposed to be like the party but there's either like no music or it's slow music. No one's interacting. Like maybe the couples are all kind of separated. And like it just seems like the most boring thing. Like at this party that like I think it's their first night as counselors. The kids aren't arrived yet. Like they're in training. So you think they would like be going crazy. No one's really drinking. People are playing like video games. There's two people arm wrestling. Like it's like the lamest
Some
fucking
checkers
party.
out.
Yeah, it's oh my God, it looks so boring. Like no one's doing anything. It's like it just makes no sense. Like you came all this way, like wouldn't you like want to like I don't know, all hang out? Like and like I know like you put me in a room with like 8 people, we're probably just gonna be talking a bunch of shit, probably playing drinking games. Like I don't know. Even if I don't like the people, like I'm gonna like, how am I gonna interact with them? The other thing too, I think is always funny. There'll be this kind of really super boring party where everybody's quiet and doing their own thing, and some guy will always ask some girl to dance.
Yeah, why?
It's
How
like
awkward is that?
like no one else is dancing. Like it's and there's not even music playing half the time. It's just like You want to dance? Like, sure, let's just dance and make a spectacle of ourselves in front of like eight other people who are completely doing like nothing. I always thought that happens in so many movies and it cracks me up every time.
Maybe that's how you used to break the ice in the 80s. You know, you could kind of break that wall down and get to touching. I mean, I don't know if that's like what the plot was, but I think something really interesting about this film is think about how many kills there would have been if they didn't go to that bar, because during like that dinner scene when they're eating outside, there's probably like five or six banquet tables filled with people. There's a ton of characters that, you know, they don't have a name, they're not a part of this story, but there's a lot. There's probably like an additional six to eight people that aren't even like a part of this story, and they kind of just get rid of them by bringing them to the bar. But imagine if everyone kind of stayed there. I mean, the body
Massacre.
counts would have been like probably around 30. It would have been crazy. But I mean, I always find that interesting because you always forget. It's always like just around like see like these like six or seven people, but there was a lot more people that were at that camp.
So another interesting thing that I read is that so the final towards the final part of the movie is they uncover what is kind of like Jason's house and they find a shrine with the severed head of Jason's mother, and there's a bunch of action that happens in that scene, like a fight and things like that. And apparently that wasn't like a fake head. That was actually an actress the whole time who was like
Oh,
hidden. Her body was hidden, and the reason for that was at some point she was supposed to open her eyes and smile, and
ooh,
they
that would
thought
have
that was
been.
like it would have been creepy as fuck, but they thought it was kind of silly, so they ended up like cutting that. But I believe what was supposed to have happened is Jason, you don't see him kill Paul, I believe, and I think she was supposed to smile to signal that he did or something like that. But yeah, they ended up cutting that. But now that like you watch it, you're like, that's actually a human. It's pretty crazy. You could notice it like now that I know, but like I never knew that before.
Yeah, it's super creepy, and even that whole scene towards the end is creepy. Yeah, Ginny doesn't help Paul at all fight Jason. She kind of just like runs when maybe they could have took him out when they're still in the house, and then they end up at, I guess, Jason's shack thing. I mean, um, don't know what her plan was, but I mean to put on that sweater, man, that was ugh, that was bold, you know.
Right?
It was I don't know if I could have brought myself to do this nasty, gross kind of like off almost like a skeleton or a decomposing body out. Who knows where that sweater came from, man? But I guess she was desperate and just put that shit on, you know.
Yeah, and what Jerry's referring to is how she kind of gets away from Jason is she basically takes the clothes of his dead mother, puts them on, and then pretends to be his dead mother, and Jason gets confused, and that's how she's able to kind of get away, which, would that work? I mean, it's a little, who knows, but it's a crazy idea. Like why not? Fuck it. Like would he think that this 20-year-old woman is his mother? Probably not. So just because she's calling him Jason, who knows? But, he also might be crazy since he's been in the woods for 5 years by himself.
Yeah, I mean, and she got like all the things right. Like, you know, mother is talking to you. How does she know that that's how Mrs. Voorhees talked? She never
Yeah. No,
heard her
it's
talk
it's
before. She would
ludicrous,
never.
but
Yeah,
look, as a
but
10-year-old boy when I saw this movie, I thought it was clever as fuck and I was like, "Oh, that's
it
brilliant."
was clever, and I mean, just I mean, I think the same thing every single time. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I don't know if I would have put that sweater on. It was fucking gross,
Yeah, it
you
had to stink.
know.
It had to fucking stink.
So yeah, I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think we hit a lot of the high points probably of this film, and I know again we're laughing at it, and that's exactly why we watch this film. It is kind of funny. It is ludicrous at times, but I mean, that's what really made it exciting and fun as, you know, a young person watching this. I think I had this on like a VHS cassette as well for a long time, and it was always fun just, you know, looking at that cover and then like popping in that cassette tape, and this madness ensued, and you're like, what a crazy movie. And always enjoyed it, so I still enjoy it now.
So before we kind of wrap this one up and rate it, like there's actually something that I want to like ask you about because
Oh,
I
okay.
never picked up. It's about part three because I just watched part three right before we got on this, and I never actually realized this before. I don't know if I just skimmed over it or just didn't pay attention, but apparently, so in part three, one of the lead actresses, she's talking to like this other guy about how she like has trouble with intimacy and things like that, and she recalls a time where she got attacked in the woods by Jason, which this scene this and they show it in a flashback apparently takes place before part two because he's not wearing the sack yet. And it's implied that he rapes her, which
Mm.
I never really picked up on. But now when you watch it, and they don't, and apparently in the script that was supposed to be like clear, but then they decided like, oh, you know what? Like, let's kind of like not make it as implied, but it still kind of is. And if you look at the character, like, it makes a lot of sense. So it's out of like you don't think about Jason in that way, but like that was before he started killing apparently. So it's possible. She doesn't outright say it, but it does kind of feel like kind of rapey, which again makes me look at the character a little different. And again, you could look at it either way. People have theories online about like what actually did happen in that scene when he encountered her because he attacks her, she blacks out and then somehow survives. So weird, right? Like, why didn't he kill her? Like, what happened there? So I just found that really interesting. I just wondered if you ever picked up on that.
No, I don't think I did.
And part three is not one of my favorites for whatever reason. I just don't really watch that one very often. It's fine, like it's
Ah,
and it takes place right after the parts of right after the events of part two. It's just one of those ones I never really watch, and I was like, oh, let me just give this one a chance.
I watch it all the time, and I think my problem is that character that you're referring to bores the hell out of me. And I think as soon as she starts talking, I just log off because she's always like kind of complaining. I guess I didn't realize the issues that she had,
Yeah,
and
she's traumatized. I mean,
that
you can
she
kind of
was.
see
I
it
didn't
now.
know. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that. So the next time I watch that. I think I'll watch it with a new lens and kind of just like, look out for that and maybe kind of dissect her character a little bit.
It makes her less annoying knowing that when you watch it through that lens because I get what you're saying and I always felt that too but now I'm like oh she's actually like recovering from trauma and that's why she's all fucked up but anyway that's just something I just noticed for the first time today. Let's get back to part two and let's rate
Yeah,
this
hell yeah.
fucker because my beer my 40 is starting to get warm so I got to keep guzzling. I'm not at the
Yeah.
halfway point yet but I'm getting there. So what do you give this? Oh, just so the audience knows for those tuning in for the first time, we rate every movie on a scale of 0 to 5 bloody knives, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. And what happens is the number of bloody knives I give a film is the number of seconds Jerry needs to drink, and vice versa. So I will let you go first as I try not to burp again.
Yeah, I mean, I like this film, and I was thinking I was going to go high with this one, but I was kind of looking at it with more of a critical eye this time around since we're reviewing it. I mean, I have watched this movie. I don't even know. It's probably up to triple digits at this point in my life, but I always watch it, for fun and for entertainment, not really, looking at it critically. I still love it. I still like it. Still going to keep watching it, but I'm not going to go as high as I initially thought I was going to go. So for part two, I am giving this 3.5 bloody
So
knives.
you know what? I'm actually gonna do the same exact thing, and I wrestle with it because again, there's that huge nostalgia piece. Again, the first horror movie I ever watched. I do watch this multiple times a year. If you look at it like critically, like it's a flawed movie, but I enjoy it. But I do love it. But again, it's 1981, right? But I'm gonna give it a 3.5 also. Depends on the
Oh,
day. Maybe some days I give it 4, but today I'm giving it a 3.5. So let's cheers to that.
cheers. Big 4 O's. Ah, man, I'm
Mm.
guzzling over here.
Man.
I am guzzling.
I'm already feeling it, man. Like at this point in the show, I'm usually no, we're about 40 minutes in. I'm usually I'm feeling it more than normal. I'm definitely I don't know why. Like beer just gets me drunk. I don't know.
Damn, but then I guess this would be a perfect time to do our drinking games, just to make
Oh,
sure you screw up the next three films that we're gonna go over.
oh boy. All right,
So
what's this
yeah,
game?
since we were drinking 40s tonight, I thought it'd be fun to include a little drinking game, and it's a drinking game that we've played before on this show, but I made it a little bit different. So this drinking game is it's gonna be the high low, or equal, and that's what I'm adding to it. So
Okay.
basically, this is body count is really important to slashers, and let's see how it's important to Friday the 13th. So basically, I looked at all the other Friday the 13th that we did not watch. And I pulled their body count off of some Friday 13th fandom page, and I wrote it down here. And I'm going to give you a number, and you just have to guess if it's higher, lower, or equal to the actual body count of that film.
Oh
And
man.
normally we just do high and low, but I thought since we're just drinking, some 40s tonight, that
Ugh.
I would add the equal element just to give another chance to kind of mess up and make it a little more tougher than just 50-50. So
So what are the stakes? If I get it wrong, you
so
drink. If I get it right, wait, I get it right, you drink. I get it wrong, you drink.
yes,
No,
exactly. But
I fucked that up. I get it right, you drink. I get it
yes,
wrong, I drink. Got it.
yes,
Okay.
yes, I
I don't know
thought
why I
that's
had
what
to
you
say it three
said.
times, but it's not. I
Man,
don't know.
you still got a lot left of that 40, but
It's not. It's not
yeah.
gonna go well.
And everything is basically just going to be two sips. A sip of a beer really doesn't do anything. So we're just going to do two sips for whoever gets it right or wrong. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first film we're going to talk about is the original Friday the 13th that we just talked about. And apparently you watched a lot of these, so you might be warm and maybe you paid attention or you looked it up or something like that. So this could really screw me right now, but let's go with it. So for the original Friday the 13th, I'm saying there were 8 kills. Is it higher, lower, or equal?
Is this including the
This is
mother at
all.
the
This is
end?
everything. Yeah.
Equal.
So it's actually 10.
Ah, damn.
So you drink two sips. Alrighty. Now we're moving on to part three. I'm saying there were 12 kills in part three.
Less than that.
Hmm. This is not going your way. It's
Yeah,
equal.
this is tough. Oh
This,
fuck. Yeah, equals.
yeah.
Yeah, that's. I knew that was gonna fuck me.
I mean, yeah, that's the point of the game. We want to do it. All right. I mean, it's 33%. You got to get it right. So
I guess those are good odds.
that's not bad odds, better than like Vegas. All right. So now we're going to skip over to part five. I'm going to say there were 20 kills in part five.
So here's the thing. I know part four has 13 because I did look that up. Yeah, I'm gonna say less than 20. 20 seems like a lot.
Actually, there's 21.
Fuck, there's that many kills in that movie? Damn.
Yeah. And what I did
Damn.
notice about all these is they never repeat a number,
Oh,
So
really?
it's every single film has like very different numbers that it's weird.
I think four and the remake are both 13 because I looked that up.
Interesting.
But other than that, I don't know anything other than that.
All right, let's go to part six. I'm gonna say there were 20 kills in part six.
There's 21 in part five. I'm gonna say even.
Very close. It was actually lower. There was
Damn.
18.
Ugh.
Yes. Oh man. All right, you got a few more to like pull it back here. I
Ugh.
think this is gonna be your set coming up.
I don't know.
Are you ready for part seven?
Yeah, and before we get to part seven, I rewatched that. I actually really like part seven, and I know
Which
it's
one's that? Because
the
I call.
telekinesis one.
Thank you.
It's one,
Got it. Okay.
and I know that's ridiculous, like someone telekinesis fighting Jason, but there's a lot of really cool kills in that. Like it's actually really that's one of my favorites out of them. It's like one I
Really?
watched. Yeah, like it's a guilty pleasure. Like I wouldn't say it's like good, but I do enjoy that one a lot. It's got nudity, it's got kill, especially after part six, which is like really lame
Yeah.
because six like has I don't think there's like any blood. It's like very tame compared to like the other ones that came before it. And part seven kind of tried to bring that back, which I like it. I recommend it. Anyway, go ahead. How many kills?
It's so funny because I feel like people don't love like part four and part five, but I feel like they love part six. And probably the same reason you don't like it is the same reason I don't
Yeah,
like
I
it.
would say like my favorites, like taking the remake out of it, my favorites are four, five, and seven, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so for some reason everyone had telekinesis powers in the mid 80s. I don't know why. Like every film that came out was about that, but in this particular one, I'm gonna say that there were 15 kills in part seven.
So there were 18 and 6. I'm gonna say there's more.
Okay, you're correct.
Whew.
I told you you're
I
gonna hit
mean,
your. There were 16.
you telling me that no two had the same makes it a little like it gives me a little bit of strategy.
No two has the same.
That helps a little bit.
And it doesn't even go up or down depending on like it's all over the place. Like I'm looking at these numbers, they don't make any sense.
So if you ask me Jason Takes Manhattan or Jason Goes to Hell, I could not tell you because I never watched those movies. I've seen them like once.
We're about
I'm
to
just
do
gonna
it.
guess. All right, let's do it.
Part part 8. I'm gonna say there's 19.
I'm gonna say there's less.
It's actually equal. There are 19
Oh,
kills.
yeah, well, who knows? Who cares? Who gives a shit? I'm still not watching it. I don't care if there's 100 kills.
All right. Then we got Jason Goes to Hell, which I never watch.
I seen it. Like I don't even think I finished it. I think I seen like half of it.
Okay. I'm gonna say that there are 25 kills in this film.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say greater.
Over 25.
Just because I feel like it's a trick question. I'm gonna say greater.
It's actually less. There's 23.
I mean, whatever. I don't
What?
fucking know. Again, a billion kills. I don't give a shit. I'm never watching it.
So we're on to the last question here, and you only got one right. So for this one, I was going to offer if you wanted to raise the stakes, and instead of taking two sips, we bet a shot. And the film that we're going to be discussing is Freddy vs. Jason. And curious if you would like to take me up on that offer to do a shot instead of doing two sips.
So here's the thing, like I'm down to take a shot and get fucked up. However, I've gotten like 8 out of 9 wrong, and I also don't know very much about Freddy vs. Jason because it's another one I don't like. Unless I have some kind of handicap, I can't do the shot. I just can't do it, like because I'm gonna get it wrong. I'm gonna get it wrong. I could not. You could tell me 3 kills. I don't know because I
All
don't
right.
remember the movie at all.
How about
I hate
if I
that movie.
took equal out of the conversation and it's just a
It's just
50-50 high or
50-50.
low, would you bet it then?
No, because I honestly don't know what the number could be. Is there like I want to do this. I want to wager a shot, but like I can't.
I don't know how to handicap it
Yeah.
anymore than
All right,
50-50.
all
It's
right.
a guess.
It's funny, and I have this liquor here ready for just in case something like that happened. But I can't. Like I got too
Okay.
many wrong. I got too many wrong. Get fucked up.
Okay. All right. So for the final question,
Okay,
Freddy versus Jason, I'm gonna say there were 22 kills.
less.
Yes, you're
Oh, okay.
correct.
Well, there you go. I mean,
So I will do my sips here. Okay, so I'm
all
gonna
right.
ask
Wait.
you a
All right. Here we
question.
go. Here we go. I'm gonna do something for the shot. I'm gonna
Oh,
reverse this.
okay. Oh, you're reversing it. Okay.
I'm gonna do this and tell me if you want to take the shot. We could do over
Okay.
and under, same thing, higher, lower, no equal. I'll just do higher, lower.
Okay. High
The
lower.
parts 2, 3, and 4 are concurrent, meaning one happens right after the other. The question is how many days from when part 2 starts to part 4 ends. And I'm gonna give you a number and you say higher or lower. So from the time 2 starts to the time 4 ends, because they take place in a row. So I'm gonna say it takes place over 4 days. This is for a
Four
shot.
days. All right, so I'm willing to take this bet. I'm going to say over.
Yeah, you're
Over
right.
4 days.
It's
Oh,
5.
really?
I should have picked a different
Wow.
number. Yeah, 5 days. And okay, so for the shot, takes place over 5 days.
Well, you know what? I'm not gonna let you take a shot alone. I'm gonna do one too. So
And over those 4 days, he kills 34 people. So right here. I poured this watermelon mint zero sugar Smirnoff vodka, and that's what I'm gonna do a shot of.
I got some proper 12 Irish whiskey, so this is gonna go down like a fiery brick.
All right,
All right,
cheers.
cheers.
Oh God, that was cold.
Wow.
That probably would have
Well,
been good, but warm.
oh, that was sitting here
Oh,
for like an hour.
got
That
that
was
vodka
brutal.
burn. Now I'm actually excited to drink this 40 because like it's like better than that.
Wow.
Ooh. All right, that was a fun game, except I sucked at it. Like did
I
not see
thought you were
through.
going to nail it, honestly. I thought you
Yeah.
had like these numbers on tap, and I thought I was going to be screwed personally,
Nah,
and I
and
was
I
going to be,
thought about looking them up. I thought about playing the same game, but I was just like, because you know what it was when I was looking them up, and you probably went to the right thing, doing like a Friday the 13th thing. I was like on IMDb, and like there's so many different like
was
it would tell
inaccurate. It
you,
was, yeah, it was
yeah, it was like
inaccurate.
it wasn't, yeah, so I couldn't like do the game not being accurate. So you probably went to the right place.
So the Friday 13th fandom page, it tells you every single kill. It lays out the scene. I think it even gave the time stamp of the scene. So I knew it was accurate. I felt most comfortable doing that. I did look at IMDb, and the numbers were off by like one or two
Yeah.
or something like that. So I figured if you had these numbers cold, I wanted to be accurate. So
Yeah,
that
that same
was
thing, same reason why I didn't do that. So, all right, cool, Gabe. So let's get on to part four, which came out in 1984. In this one, Jason has basically been killed at the end of part three, and he's taken to the morgue. And he comes back from the dead. And this is the first one, I believe, where he's supernatural. It's also the first one where he's a really big, hulking menace of a figure, which is interesting.
yeah.
I'll be honest, like if I had to pick, I do like the thinner Jason better. Like I feel like the bulky killers kind of just seems a little unrealistic for me. But that's this movie. One thing I'll say right off the bat, in I think in any like 70s, 80s, maybe even recent movies, whenever there's a scene with a coroner and a body shows up, they're always eating a sandwich.
Yeah.
Every time they're eating some sandwich on white bread, every time, and they're like looking at the body, like not even affected, just munching on a sandwich. Every movie, every
Is it
movie.
supposed to show like they don't care? It's like a
Exactly,
Dirty
exactly.
Harry. It's like
Yeah.
everywhere. But it's like I want to say that guy Axel was probably like the creepiest, weirdest medical examiner ever. I mean, what was he watching that he kept putting on the
Aerobicized.
TV? Like that, why was that hot? Was that the best thing on TV?
Well, they probably had like, it was 84, so they probably had like five channels, but like the scene is like Axel is about to hook up with this really hot nurse, and like she wants to watch the news to hear about the Jason killing, and he keeps flipping the channel back to these like girls like in leotards working out, and like he's in the middle of hooking up and he's still kind of like
Like
watching. It's
watch it.
it's
It like
really
wasn't
funny.
even good.
It's really hysterical. It's the 80s though, like think about it. Like in the 1984, you probably would have watched it. I'm like, don't lie. Late at night, you got a
In
dead body
84,
behind you.
yeah, I
I
guess
mean, I know
you're
you were a
right.
kid in '84,
I
but
mean, if
like,
I was eating a sandwich, I mean, maybe.
and what's funny is actually I read that. So what ends up happening is he's hooking up, and Jason's like hand falls, like moves, and scares the girl. And I read that that actually wasn't supposed to happen, and like the hand had moved off camera. I mean, sorry, they didn't hit cut, and that happened, and they just kept it, and then I guess they,
Oh,
yeah, so
interesting.
yeah, I thought that was a really interesting fact there. It's just one of those things. He moved his hand, they're like, oh shit, we got that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a fun scene, and I hated that guy, and definitely this one starts off where I'm like, all right, let's get right into it and kill these two right away.
And that first kill with Axel is brutal. It's a hacksaw across
Yeah.
the throat. It is vicious. And I will say before we get into this one, out of all the Friday 13th, this one is my favorite.
Oh,
There's
nice.
there's the nostalgia factor of it because I used to watch it all the time as a kid. But I still love it. It's like the perfect kind of slasher movie. You got a lot of kills. I believe there's 13 kills on the nose in this one. There's a lot of nudity. The kills are good. There's like actually funny dialogue. Like I actually like some of the characters. I actually get into some of the characters, like the Sam and who's her boyfriend? Paul. Like I'm like into like their whole like dynamic and how like he's about to cheat on her and she gets all pissed off because Sam was fucking hot, you know. So I was like, I'm super into this movie, and like every time I watch it, I love it more.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually really like this cast. I thought for like, basically like killer bait, they were likable and funny, and some of my favorite Friday 13th characters are right here. They're in, they're in this exact, movie. I mean, I think that, Crispin Glover,
Yeah, he's
Jimbo, Jimmy,
amazing.
I think he is really funny. Um, Ted, the is definitely like the comic relief. He's very funny. And what you said before, about the skinny dipping scene, I'm really angry about because I'm actually in love with Sam, and I think I fall in love with her every single time I watch this film, and she's so like nice and sweet. And not only do I like her a lot in this film, she actually plays one of my favorite characters in another film, which came out like a year later. She plays Hilly in Weird Science, which is like one of
Oh
my favorite
yeah,
characters.
you're
And I
right.
was
Yeah.
I was in love with her as a kid. Like she's like my vibe, my style, that look. She was like a mall girl, almost like a valley girl kind of thing, and had like that punk rock look. And this is the same actress, Julie Aronson, and I really like her. So I'm really pissed off that they made her kind of like they tortured her a bit like during that scene because like I love her in this movie and I was wish that she was the final girl because I liked her so much.
Yeah, and I think I was reading that she was like cast in a couple other movies that were like much bigger movies. Like I think one was like ended up getting like the Oscar, and something happened where like they ended up uncasting her at the last minute, so she like ended up taking this role just to like get a role, but she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do the nudity, and but she's like, "Fuck it, I got nothing going on, so I'm gonna do it." I think that's what I read. And the other thing I read is that one of the twins actually read for the role of Sam, didn't want to do the nudity, and then the casting director found out she had a twin sister, and then like, oh, let's write two twins into this movie, but you both got to do nudity. And the one who was originally going to read for Sam, like she didn't want to do it, but her sister's like, I don't give a fuck, so they both did it together. And otherwise, that those wonderful scenes with the twins would have happened. But yeah, when Paul like kind of leaves Sam to hook up for the one twin, I was like, fuck, what is wrong with you? Because Sam is
Oh, you do.
hot,
I love Sam.
and just cool. She's super cool. So I like, I found that, and it's just interesting how no one else goes after her. Like, if I was there at that party, like, I would have been like, oh, wait, what? Sam's leaving? Like, Paul's, I'm gone. I'm gonna sneak in.
Yeah, I would
Don't
have
leave your
slipped.
girl around me, you know?
I would have slipped him a few shots and be like, "Yo, man, you should hook up. Twins, man. What's the odds? Go for it." And I would have been right out there on that lake in that boat with Sam. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite characters, and I'm hurt every single time that her kill happens. But yeah, I mean, I want to start with like right in the beginning of this film, which I find hysterical when they're all driving in the station wagon, and there's that scene with Ted, and he's talking to Jimmy about his relationship with the famous BJ Betty, and I mean, this is such a hysterical conversation, and just the way it's done is these two guys sitting in the back of like an old station wagon. They got the shitty seat like all in the back. It's not even like a seat. It's just kind of like leaning up against like the back window, and he's like, I can't believe that you broke up with BJ Betty. And he's like, let me put it into the computer. And like you almost like kind of like buy into it. It's like, what's this guy doing, man? Is he getting some information? And then he does get some information, and he basically calls Jimmy a dead fuck. And that kind of it's like a joke that goes on throughout the entire film, and it never gets old, it never gets dumb. It's just funny. And I mean, as stupid as it is, it's just like dumb humor, and it fits this film perfectly, and I love that scene.
Yeah, I think all the scenes with Jimbo and Teddy are really funny, and it like almost becomes like that other kind of movie where it's like you have like that the hijinks, and it becomes like
Yeah,
very comedic. And I think it's for a slasher movie, it's really well written because it is funny, and the lines are iconic, and it's like lines you say over and over again. And I love that, like, again, Teddy plays it off like he's this like super cool ladies man, and he's the only one that doesn't hook up. Like, everybody
literally.
else hooks up because he is kind of like basically like he's pretty rapey, right? He's like way too aggressive, but it's just so funny. Even like Crispin Glover, like gets a piece, right? And and to show Teddy, he like brings him like these big ass
He's like,
straws.
this is
Look at the panties of the fucking super
Oh my God.
funny.
Guess that was a thing in the 80s because I feel like that was not like the first or last time I kind of seen like that sort of like,
Oh, so many movies like in the 80s where like they like try to take the girl's panties and show like, look,
yeah,
I
it's a
scored.
strange,
Like it's
yeah,
such an
what a
80s thing to do.
strange thing. Also, this film was introduction to a legendary character, which is Tommy Jarvis, who was iconically played by Corey Feldman, and I find the young Tommy Jarvis extremely annoying.
Yes,
And
yes.
I appreciate that it's Corey Feldman, but I almost get annoyed every single scene that he is in, especially in the beginning, anytime he's talking or delivering his lines. I just don't like the character, but I do think it's very funny when he's trying to go to bed that first night and he
Yep.
sees like some hooking up and perhaps some nudity through his window. And honestly, as like 11 or 12-year-old boy, that's kind of like a fantasy. You just kind of look across your window and you see like a bunch of teenagers like kind of hooking up. And I thought that was like, pretty funny, but and his reaction I think
Oh, that's
was
what I was gonna say.
funny.
That's what's funny. It's like his react. It's not just like he sees this. He's literally like punching the bed. He's so
He doesn't
excited,
know how to
and
react.
and he
Yeah.
looks away. He keeps looking away, like like putting his face in the bed because he just can't handle. He's like so excited, and then of course his mom walks in, and he has to
Yes.
hide and pretend that he's
Cock
sleeping.
blocker.
Yeah, I agree. So like, look, kids in horror movies is always like a problem, right? Because kids are not usually not good actors. They're usually annoying. And you could kind of let a lot of that go because he does have some like funny moments, but he does get a lot of screen time, probably way too much screen time for this movie. And it wasn't like at the time they were setting up for like him to be in a sequel because like it is called The Final Chapter, and I think they really thought that this is probably going to be it. And I know like the final shot of the movie kind of makes it look like Corey Feldman is like something bad is going to happen to him, but I also did read that that was actually not the original ending, and the original ending was a dream sequence where the final girl is back in her house and she finds her mother murdered in the bathtub by Jason. And Jason kind of pops
Mm,
out and like grabs her and like it's like kind of like a throwback to what they did in the second and the third one. And then they realized like, it's too much like the second and the third one. Let's just cut that. But apparently they shot a whole different ending, but then they just changed it.
really? That is interesting. And yeah, obviously with the title, you would think that they were probably expecting to kind of like stop it at this point, but they definitely still go on. They're only like halfway through
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, because
But
they kept making money. Like this, they didn't cost a lot to make, and they were actually still at this point doing really well in the box office. Now, once they got to like the later parts, like it started falling off a lot more, but they were still doing really good. And the other thing about Corey Feldman that, like, again, when I saw this as a kid, it never bothered me because, like, who gives a shit? But you watch it now and it's super annoying. And, like, the big thing that happens in the end is Jason is basically stalking Corey Feldman's older sister and this other character. And Corey Feldman gets the idea that he's going to shave off his head and pretend to be boy Jason, and then he's going to talk to Jason, and Jason's going to think that it's himself as a boy, which is ludicrous. And it is like it's kind of like a throwback to part two, I guess. But what's really ludicrous about it is like the amount of time it must take him to shave his head because he's like you see him like cutting it with scissors, like he's literally trimming his hair. Like it probably took him a half hour to shave his head to get and then to put the makeup on. And like he was supposed to have run away, and like so you see like Jason's basically fighting like his sister to the death. Corey's in the bathroom like cutting his hair. It's so silly. Like, and I get he's like supposed to be 12, so like you don't know better, but like it's like come on, like he had time to do all this shit like for this thing that literally distracts Jason for 2 seconds. And again, it works. It does work, but it's stupid. Like Jason's gonna see a 12-year-old boy and be like, "Oh yeah, that's me." Like he's never seen a kid before. He's like haunting a camp,
yeah, I mean, it's
Like
just, and I know it's that this time as well because again, I rarely look at these movies critically because I'm just watching them for enjoyment. And I was like, why the hell would Jason fall for that? I have no idea why he would care, why he would look or even be distracted. There's like he's not dumb. I mean, he's just he's a
yeah,
killer and I don't understand like why he would think like the boy version of himself would distract him. I mean, maybe impersonating the mother is one thing, impersonating himself
it's silly. It's silly.
You know,
And again, like, why would
it's
you think of this? Like, all this shit's happening. Like, you're basically about to get murdered by this killer, and like, instead of running, your idea is like, oh, I'm gonna cut off all my hair, shave my head, put on makeup, and pretend to be him as a boy. Like, I mean, it's like so
yeah,
stupid.
you're
It's
in
so
the
stupid.
bathroom, you're like combing it, you're like looking in the mirror, you're
He's
like, here
taking
we
his
go.
fucking time. Like,
This
he's
looks
like
right,
trimming it a
man.
little
It's
bit.
like it's so stupid. But yeah, that is a dumb part. And since we're gonna talk about dumb parts, I want to talk about the introduction to the twins, Tina and Terry, and basically the group is making their way down to the lake because they're gonna, probably do some skinny dipping, of course, because it was huge in the 80s. And if anyone wants to hit me up now and let me know if skinny dipping is still big, let me know because I don't get invited to a lot of these situations
It was huge in
anymore.
the
As I've
90s
got,
too, if you remember,
yeah,
because I
yes,
know
yes.
we might
I,
have had a few
I
moments.
remember the 90s, so I want to know if it's popular now. But basically, this group is walking one way, which I think is towards the lake. And here comes Tina and Terry on their bikes. And they ask them, they're pretty excited that they're twins. And they ask them, like, hey, do you know where the lake is? And they're like, oh, we're going there ourselves. It's a pretty far walk. It's like, then why the fuck are you coming this way? And we're going that way. And then they turn around and they go back in the direction that they just came. So how the hell were they going to the lake if they were going in the wrong direction? I thought that was like the dumbest thing. They literally could have said at like, oh, we just came back from there, but we'll go with you. They could literally have said anything, but they said, oh, we're going there too. No, you're not. You're going the wrong way. So
And then the
I
woman
thought it
was like,
was
"Oh,
like,
I'm gonna go back and get the car because I don't want to do this long walk." And I think they beat her there. Like I feel like they get there before she does.
they do because apparently it wasn't really that far away. It was like probably like a quarter mile. So it's
Yeah.
like not far at all. But I thought that was a pretty dumb introduction to like the twins.
And and that I think during that scene when they're all walking, Teddy has another great line, and Crispin Glover is like, "Should I call BJ Betty again?" And he's just like, "Never get rejected by the same girl twice. If you want to make a fool of yourself, do it with someone new." I thought that was pretty brilliant. I was like, "That's actually good advice."
I mean he basically spit fire. That guy, every word out of his mouth was funny, whether it was intended or not. It was just so funny. I think that guy Ted was hysterical. And I don't even think he was like even a big actor or anything like that. I don't know if he's done
He should have been though.
too
He was
much.
perfect for those 80s movies. Like he would
Yeah.
have fit really well in any 80s comedy, I think.
Yeah, I thought he was like super funny. I liked him a lot. I like when they do get to the actual lake, and of course, there is some skinny dipping going on,
A little bit.
and yeah, and our girl Sam is like, trying to push Sarah to jump in with them, and she's being like the shy girl, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that, and Sam's like, come on, Sarah, strip and dip, and like right at that moment. Man, I think I fall in love all over again.
Strip and dip,
And
baby.
and she's like, "All right, well, if you don't jump in, then I'm just gonna hurt myself." And then she tries to drown herself because she's so into getting Sarah to skinny dip. And I think that scene's hysterical, and there's a lot of man ass, and there could be some ball flopping if you look closely, if you have a big screen TV. But yeah, I mean that's a pretty iconic scene, I think, in this film, and probably one that I always find very, very funny.
Yeah, and then that one character that Sam is trying to convince to skinny dip is like again so annoying. She's like it's like a cliche in the horror movies, right? You have that one virginal character
Yeah.
who like finally agrees to like have not agree, but finally is like I'm finally gonna have sex, and then she gets killed like right after. And she has like it's like one of the cringiest lines too. It's like she just fucked this guy in the shower, and she's going to go I don't know do something, and he says something and she's just like, I think I'm in love. It's like I forget
Yeah.
what the exact line is, but it's like, oh God, you're so gross.
Yeah. If that literally just happened, I'd be like, God, I hope Jason's around the corner and kills me right now because I can't get involved with this clingy girl.
And then what's funny is like the guy's in the shower and he's like singing, and like someone approaches the shower, which we find out is Jason, and he thinks it's the other guy, Paul. And he's just like kind of flirting with them. He's
Like
like,
weird
Paul,
things.
he's like, I just dropped the soap. Come on in. Like, I know he's just
Yeah.
fucking around, but like, it's like, are you trying to fuck Paul? Like, what is actually happening
It
here?
was
He's a
it,
freak.
it definitely was a very strange part. The shower scene that definitely came after like the party scene, and I
A
think
party, quote unquote
I
party.
think I
It's
think
not
the
really a
party
party.
scene was also, again, it was hysterical. It's exactly how I described it. It was just a bunch of people basically sitting around. Maybe there was a beer out. There was no chips. No one looked like they were having like a great time. It was kind of like just a couple of groups. Maybe someone's sitting on the stairs. Someone's over in the corner on the chair by themselves. Two people on the couch.
And
You
what's
know,
funny
it
is
was
it starts in like silence. There's no music or anything playing. And then Crispin Glover plays some like rock music and he does his like really wild dance, which apparently like he said like that's just how I dance, which I believe it because he's nuts. But he's playing this like music, at least it's like kind of rockin' music. And then I think Paul goes over and puts on
yeah,
this like really slow 1930s music, and you're like, and then for the rest of the party, it was all this super slow,
he
boring. Like
killed it.
what teenagers are playing? Like, you came up to this cabin to get crazy, right? Like, you
It's a
didn't come here to
party.
like sit in silence. You came here to like get drunk, hook up, talk shit, do whatever. Like, it's so interesting. It's just like, again, it's just like the writing or like how they set up the scene. Like, you could have made it look more interesting though. But this is like a lot of these movies that took place around this time. It's like not really. It's like either a raging party or it's like so fucking boring.
So boring. It's like they're slow dancing the rest of the night, and of course someone has to ask someone like, "You want to dance?" And they're like, "No." And yeah, that weird punk interpretive dance that
It's funny though. It's hysterical. And like the twin is like trying to get into it. She's like, fuck it.
I mean, it was kind of like he was moshing a little bit, but he was like offbeat. So I mean, I don't know what was going on there, but I
And
mean
he was only
that
17 when they shot that, believe it or not.
that's
He was
funny.
he
I
was
mean,
young. He was brand new.
that was such a funny moment in this movie. And again, it was kind of like that like comedic break, and you do find it funny, and you laugh and you kind of forget like about like all the gore that happened before and all the gore that's about to happen. But also during that time, I'm going to say there was a long gap in this film with absolutely no kills at all. I'm going to say there was probably like 25 minutes, maybe a half hour where like really, I mean, I guess they're plot building or character building. I don't know really what they're doing.
But you
Where
know
all
what
this
though? Like
stuff
they all
happens.
have that. Other than like maybe the fifth one where it starts getting a little crazy. The first three, four movies, there's a long stretch of the time where nothing happens, where it's just a lot of talking. And like again, it's 80s, right? That's just how it was. Like it wasn't nonstop action stuff back then. So there is they all have that. I kind of like when I watched a bunch of them, I was like, oh, they all have these like huge 30 minutes where basically a bunch of shit happens in the beginning and then there's like not another kill. I think in this one, there's like the two kills in the beginning and then there's not another kill to like the 40-minute mark. But I didn't care. I don't care because there's hijinks. It's like sleepaway camp, right? It's like you get into it because it's like you kind of get into like the vibe of the movie and it doesn't necessarily need to be a bunch of kills. Now, once the kills start, it's like relentless. It's like one after the other. And so it really picks up steam. But yeah, a lot of these movies, it's like, again, you'll have like, it opens good. Then there's like 30 to 40 minutes where nothing happens. Then it's like nonstop kills. Then there's 20 minutes of him chasing the final girl, which is funny when I rewatched the seventh one and the final scenes of the final girls. She's basically kicking the shit out of Jason, but it doesn't last that long. It's like 15 minutes of him of actually when it's just her and him. So it's like kind of speeds up a bit, which is what I like. I'm getting drunk.
Yeah, all right. Of course, this one has like, the big final battle, and it's like Trish and Tommy, basically fighting with Jason, and that one weird guy that's just like hanging out in the woods. Again, not too clear like who that guy was.
So he was someone, Jason killed someone close to him, I believe, and he's tracking Jason, is I believe what he killed. Someone in part three is like related to him somehow,
Oh.
I believe, and he's trying to find Jason. I believe that's what happened. And in the original script, he has like all this surveillance equipment to find him, but they like it looks stupid, so they didn't shoot it. But yeah, he's basically there, I think, to find him.
Yeah, and he's just like hanging out, he's camping out in the woods.
Yeah, he's trying to find Jason who killed his sister or somebody close to him.
Totally forgets about that and just kind of shifts his attention to like Trish and is like, man, I need
I
to like
mean, Jason could
Hey,
wait.
I mean, he's like in the house, he's all he has to do is, get rid of this kid. It's like, kid, why don't you go play your masks and
Oh, and this is so 80s, like when Trish is like kind of flirting with him or whatever. She's like, "Oh, if you ever need to like come in and take a shower or if you want to come in." He's like, even if we're not home, our door's usually open." Like it's like,
Like, what?
what the fuck? Well, you leave your door open. I get they're in the middle of nowhere, and back in the 80s, maybe you didn't stress that much about it, but it seems so crazy. You're just telling this stranger you just met who's camping in the woods that, "Oh yeah, come in anytime. Yeah, fuck it."
Sure. So you asked me before a question and I answered it. So I'm gonna ask you the same exact question for this film. There were a lot of kills in this film. Which one was your favorite?
Oh, easy corkscrew. It's
Yeah, that's
iconic.
awesome.
It's iconic, and to set it up for you, those of you who haven't seen it, it's like Crispin Glover is celebrating that he just got laid, and he's about to open up a bottle of wine, and he's looking for the corkscrew, and he's like, "Teddy, where's the
The
corkscrew?
corkscrew.
No, where's the goddamn corkscrew?" And then Jason slams it right into his hand. It's brilliant. It's so good.
Oh,
It's so good. It's like probably one of the first like humorous kills in like a Friday the 13th movie, right? Where it's like that was actually kind of funny, and just timely. Like Jason just
yeah.
happened to have the
It's
corkscrew.
like
Like,
here's your corkscrew and also a cleaver to the face. So, if the corkscrew
brilliant.
wasn't bad enough, you got a meat cleaver as well. Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of my favorites. I think probably the biggest kill in this one is when Jason throws one of the twins out the window and then she slams onto the roof of the car and there's like almost like a glass explosion and it just looks like so crazy. I think they slow it down a bit and it's like they got like that cool blue lighting for the rain and it's just pouring outside and it's just like boom, it's almost like a huge explosion as like the impact. I mean, to me that was like it was like a holy shit moment where you're like, whoa, that was this huge kill. I thought I really like that one.
Yeah, that one, and I also really like when he kills the guy in the shower and like basically punches through the glass to get the guy. And apparently, the actor actually got really injured while they did that shot. He got slammed into the wall really hard, but that kill's pretty brutal too.
Yeah, they
Um,
weren't smart enough to use tempered glass. I mean, that thing was breaking off in like chunks. So yeah, that was vicious. Yeah, that was pretty sick too.
Which one is your favorite out of the series? If I said this one's mine, which one's yours?
It's probably a tie. It's probably between this one and five.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to pick a favorite out of those two. They're both really good.
Yeah, I watch them both so often that I'm never positive which one I prefer. Which one do I watch more? Probably this one, I think.
That's what I think too. I think I like them equal, but I watch this one more. Yeah.
Like there's some annoying characters in part five, and it's really like probably older Tommy that's probably like just like kind of lame or like that maybe annoys me a little bit and like that halfway house, some of the characters there kind of like annoy me. But I think there's a lot of comedy in that one as well. But this one just flows so much better and outside of like that lag of 20-25 minutes it's mostly like action going on here so it's a tough call. This is definitely up there for me. I do like this one.
So let's get into let's rate them because I'm about a halfway point of the 40. I am slurring like a motherfucker. We got two more movies to talk about. One of them I think will be quick, but we'll see. So let's get into it. So what do you rate this one, 0 to 5?
I like this movie a lot. I watch it all the time. Probably watched it 100 times. Probably gonna watch it 100 more. This is 4.5.
4.5. You know what? I might surprise you a little bit here, and I think I'm just on a roll after Terrifier 3, but I am going to give this one a 5.
Oh.
I love this movie, and it's like again, like I know you say there's like times where it kind of lags, but it kind of is like the perfect 80s slasher. Like if I had to pick what my favorite 80s slasher one, I don't know if if I really thought about it, maybe I wouldn't pick this one, but I think I'd pick this one. I give it 5 stars. And again, I've probably seen this one 20 times.
All
So
right.
let's guzzle,
Cheers. I'm
baby.
freaking 5.
Mm.
Oh man,
God,
wow.
this is warm and disgusting.
Yeah, I'm getting down in it though. I'm about a little less than halfway. So I don't know if Everyone could hear me banging essentially this glass now on my table. It's getting heavy. I'm used to nice 1.5 ounces.
This 40 started nice, and now it's just torture. But we're gonna get through it. So now we're gonna shift gears a bit,
Hmm.
and we wanted to pick movies to show like how the franchise evolved. And it definitely took some big leaps through some of the later films, with again, one being Jason going to New York City, which is ridiculous. Jason goes to hell. Basically, he gets blown up in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then his spirit possesses people, which is crazy. And then they made Jason X, which is Jason going to outer space. He's cryogenically frozen, and 400 years later, some people find him and bring him on a spaceship. And what I read was after Jason Goes to Hell, the idea was to do Freddy vs. Jason because they set it up at the very end, but it kept getting pushed back. Like they just couldn't get it going. So someone was just like, well, while we're waiting, let's just do Jason Goes to Space. And they're like, all right, fuck it. Like, let's do it. And they ended up doing this before Freddy vs. Jason. And what ended up happening was this one bombed really bad and they kind of basically killed the franchise. Although I did read that like when it went to home video and DVD, like it got like a cult following somehow and it
Hmm.
ended up being like one of the more successful ones, believe it or not. But in the box office, it tanked. And then it kind of pushed back Freddy vs. Jason even more because they're like, oh fuck, we can't touch this for a while.
Mm.
But so it was kind of just like a movie that there wasn't even supposed to be made. If they made Freddy vs. Jason, they never would have made this movie, and I wish they never did because it's awful. So now I seen this movie once when it came out. I saw it. Obviously, I hated it because it's Jason in space and it's not good. But I hadn't seen it since, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch this movie with new eyes. I'm gonna also think about it as like, would I like this if it wasn't a Friday the 13th movie? Like, is it that I hate it because like, oh, they put Jason in space and it's just silly? Nah, the movie's just bad. It's just really bad. It's like the characters are really annoying. The dialogue is very cringy. It's just like and what I don't like about this movie too, it's like in all the other Friday the 13th, what I think is good is Jason's like stalking people basically. And in this one, it's like almost like they're hunting him. And you're following these soldiers and these like really annoying young people that just happen to be running this ship. I don't know why, like why they're no older people really, but like they're basically trying to kill Jason and he's killing them in defense basically, which is like an interesting thing. And like you look at the concepts and I guess they were like, oh, we're tired of making the same movie of Jason like stalking people in the woods, but why? Like it works. Like, I could watch two, three, four, five, it's like six, even like I could watch these movies anytime. If they just would have made another movie of him killing people in the woods, I think it still would have been cool. Like, I don't think you need to get gimmicky. Like it's like why break like a formula? But they did, and that's what we got.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a bit of, jumping the shark a bit by putting Jason in space. The thing about the woods is they're always scary. They're always dark. You never know what's around the corner. It's just a scary setting. A spaceship, I don't know, what I'm saying? Like it's supposed to be like so far in the future. It didn't look that technologically advanced to me. It just kind of looked like regular stuff going on. And it was kind of lame. And I think the one of the major problems I had with this one was with the killer bait is that there was so many of them and they end up getting picked off really before you even kind of like learn who they are or even learn what their names are. I mean, it gets into action really, really quick. There's barely any plot or character development. It's just like within a couple of minutes. I mean, it starts off with him being frozen and then he's getting thawed and it starts with the probably the best kill in the entire movie, which is the liquid nitrogen kill. I mean, that's probably like the best. Yeah, that's probably the best kill in the entire film. So once that happens, you're like, wow, this is really kind of coming out with like a bang, but it's like, who was that? What character was that? I thought, was that character important? I don't know if that character was important. She's already dead. And then he just starts picking off like all these other characters. I don't know their names. I didn't write their names down. I normally write down everyone's names so I could kind of refer to them and talk about them in some sort of sense, but there's nothing to talk about. There was nothing interesting about them. I mean, probably the cool. coolest character was the android, which was which was KM, and she battled Jason a little bit.
Which
I
was
find
ridiculous. It was like a comic book.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of comic books, I'm not sure how you even feel about like when it was like the modified Jason and he became like the Uber Jason. It kind of looked like a Marvel character or
Yeah.
like some sort
It
of
was like
like comic
Bane.
book thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I do like a big bulked up Jason, so I might be a little bit different than you on that one. I do like a big Jason,
And this was
and
Kane Hodder, who's he's big and fucking menacing, like for
he's
sure.
probably as big as he's ever been in any of them. I think he really went hard for this one, and they always make him look probably a little bit taller than he really is in real life. I don't even think he's 6 foot, but they always make him look like huge and menacing. But I mean, I don't know if I loved the mask or the outfit. It just wasn't scary, and I feel like besides that liquid nitrogen kill, a lot of the kills are kind of like I don't know, like acrobatic, I guess. Like there was a lot of flipping around
He
and
gives the guy a
spiraling
backbreaker at one
around.
point.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's I don't know, like they really diverged, you know. I mean, he did pick up some cool weapons and I was like, all right, this is gonna be sick. But it just wasn't. It just I don't know what the problem was. It just wasn't. Like when he used the weapons and someone does like a backflip and spins around and ends up 20 feet away. I'm like, is that a machete kill? I don't know. Like I don't know.
You know what it was too? There was so many scenes of them like shooting at Jason. Like he probably got hit with hundreds of bullets, and after a while, it gets boring. Like, okay, like they're just gonna unload on him, and he's gonna be fine. It's like there was so many scenes like that, that just it just kind of tired me out. And I was like, okay, we get it, we can't kill him. I like, why are you even shooting him at this point if
But
it
you
clearly
got
doesn't
it. How
work?
come they didn't get it? Yeah, I mean they
Clearly doesn't
tried
work.
shooting him.
Clearly, like
Yeah,
he's invincible.
yeah, they tried shooting him like right in the beginning and it didn't work. And you would think that they would have like again, this is like 400 years in the future. You would think they would have like more advanced equipment than like say a
Lasers and shit, you
shotgun
know?
or a
Yeah.
machine gun or something like that. Believe me, I like a good Gatling gun in a movie, but it was like it didn't work. You know, it did absolutely nothing. Like where was their laser? Where was like all, you know, this technology that they could have used against him? But I mean, he was basically beating the crap out of like these sophisticated, what I would say are aliens because they're so far advanced in like the human race,
Yeah, we
but
don't
they
know
were
if they're
still
from
trying
Earth
to
or not,
use,
I don't think, but
yeah,
yeah.
like, you know, they were trying to kill him with basically a shotgun and it wasn't working, and they weren't smart enough to be like, all right, let's do something else. It's
Yeah,
dumb.
like if you could invent this like spaceship and you're 400 years in the future, like you would think you would have again lasers or some shit. And again, this movie doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie. It feels like almost like they made like a Doom movie, but like something about the video game. That's what it felt like, right? Like it just wasn't good. And just getting back to like how bad the dialogue is, I wrote down this one line that basically sums up the entire movie. And basically, this Jason's about to kill somebody, and one of the characters wants to distract Jason, and he goes, "Hey, Slappy, I got something for you." Yeah, I don't know if you didn't see this,
I
but
was,
Jerry almost he was drinking and almost spit up his
oh
beer.
my
Hey,
God.
Slappy, like you couldn't think of a better insult than Slappy. Like what
It's a
is this
rated R
shit?
movie. It's a rated R movie.
Slappy.
You could have said anything. Could have called him dickhead. You could have called him anything.
Fucking
And I
needle
mean
dick, numbnuts, anything like Slappy. It's so bad, so cringy.
that's the slang they're using in the 400 years from now. They're using slappy. Yeah. Yeah, there was nothing really redeeming about this film, and I don't watch it often, but I do watch it sometimes because I always think that there's like some cool things in it, and I guess what I realized is probably what the things that I do like about this film is probably like the level of the gore. Like when he does like basically take apart these people, it is really bloody and it's really, you know, gory at times. There's that one guy that was like spinning real slow, like kind of like on a giant screw. I mean that was like gory and brutal, and he's hacking people basically in half and taking apart limbs. I mean the violence is ramped up. It's just
But it's not like it's not impactful though. It's like, yeah, it's violence, but it's boring violence. Like,
Cartoonish though is
yeah,
the thing,
again, it's like
or
I'm watching a
video
comic
game-ish.
book. It's video game-ish, so it's like
Yeah.
not interesting. I like it's out of all of the movies, and again, forgetting Jason Takes Manhattan. It's just like to me, even though this might have been the more quote unquote brutal movie, it's like the least brutal. It's like I just don't give a shit. And again, like I did want to like this time watching, I was like, you know what, I'm maybe I'm gonna like this one different because like but no, and like even if it wasn't Jason, if it was like any other killer, like just if this was its own IP, I would still like not like it because it's just not well done. And at some point at the hour mark, it kind of grinds to a halt where they're trying to like think about how to like I don't know get like explode a spaceship to get away or something like that. I will say the best scene though happens at the hour and 23-minute mark, and that is when they decide to use a hologram to trick Jason, and that is when we actually get two fake
Oh
campers
yeah.
who are really hot, and they take their tops off, and that is really cool. And Jason kills them by picking up one of their sleeping bags and beating the other one with it, which reminded me there's a kill I think in part seven where he picks up a sleeping bag and slams the girl into the tree. That's really brutal. I think they were kind of like throwing back to that. But that scene is pretty. It's an interesting way to kind of like trick Jason, just to like let's show him some like naked campers and have it. It's silly, it's ridiculous, but at least you get some nudity in the movie, right?
Definitely the highlight of this film, and also like a nod to virtual reality before it was really a thing. Like now it, virtual reality is pretty common, but in 2001, I mean, they were almost like futurists. It's like had they know that it was going to be a thing. But yeah, I thought that part was interesting. It's probably the only part of the film I really liked outside of the liquid nitrogen face freeze.
So the final 5 minutes.
So the first 10 minutes and the last 5 minutes were probably my favorite moments in this film. The rest of it's all Ishtar. So I
Yeah.
could care less. It was just waste, and I didn't care. I didn't care about anything. I wasn't rooting for really anyone. And I think at the end, where the ship explodes and Jason flying through the air like a meteor was probably the lamest, dumbest thing I could possibly think of. It was so stupid. I was like, why? Why
It's like
are
a
they
banana
doing
peel. The
this right
banana peel
now?
shit.
Yeah, they were just trying to like figure, they needed an out. They needed to figure out how to wrap this film up. What's the only thing that makes sense? Let's just send them like a meteor back onto Earth, which wasn't even Earth, it was Earth 2. So, I don't know if they're trying to make a political statement that we ruined Earth 1, but
Who knows?
that that was over my head, and they basically send him flying through the air, and I was like, that's poor.
It's about as silly as you could get. And just the last thing I have of this movie, just a note I have, is that so for that scene with the hologram and the two topless females, the casting director thought it was like terrible that they were going to put like gratuitous nudity in this movie, and she refused to cast those two actresses because she's like, oh, it's exploitative to women and blah blah blah. And her assistant ended up casting them, and the two actresses were so happy to get the role and to be in like the movie. It's like it's just funny when people think, "Oh, you're exploiting," and then they're like, "No, we would love to take our tops off in a Friday the 13th movie. Are you crazy?" Like, so it's just super funny. Like, she literally almost quit over it, and like, I'm not gonna cast them because I don't believe in it. It's like, fuck you, shut up. It's Jason X. Like, who
Yeah,
cares?
and and
Like,
and you become like an iconic character. So I mean,
I'll
yeah,
never forget that scene. I forget everything in the movie except for the liquid nitrogen thing, which is a great kill, and the two topless girls at the end. Like, and just because it's like interesting, it's different. It's like funny. It's almost like campy and like kind of making fun of the Friday the 13th movies, which I think was like a clever way to kind of do it. So, um, you know. Anyway, that's what I feel on Jason X. So I don't have anything else to talk about this one. I'm ready to move on if you are.
yeah, I got nothing. We've been chatting a long time, so yeah, we need to make our way to probably the highlight of this
This is the first time we're
podcast.
doing four movies, which like probably be the last time we do four movies because we have gone a little long. But let's rate this one. I'm gonna really quick. I'm giving it 1.5. Like it's got two cool moments. I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. Maybe in 10 years I'll check it out, but it's awful. It's not good. It's not even campy good. It's just lame. So 1.5 for me.
I'm giving it a one. It's not for
All
me.
right. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh man,
Oh, this
this
is so warm
Voorhees.
and gross. But you know what? I'm almost done. I got like a third left, so
Yeah, I think maybe taking that shot, I don't even know if that was a good idea.
it was not a good idea. It was definitely not a good idea. All right, it's definitely not a good idea. All right, so let's talk about the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th.
Oh
And
yeah, as I'm
again,
shrugging.
like when you think about remakes, like there's so many that are really bad, and I would say that this is one remake that I really really love, and I love it for a lot of reasons. One thing I will say is it's almost like rewatching it, it doesn't really feel like a Friday the 13th movie. It almost feels like a wrong turn,
Mm,
or it reminds me a lot of, and this makes sense because it's the same director. It reminds me of that Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake they did with one with
yeah,
Jessica Biel. And what I mean by that is like the way it's like shot and lit and just like it looks like that. And maybe it's just how movies of the 2000s like looked, but it doesn't have the same feel and vibe. And I think with this one, what they did was they took kind of parts from two, three, and four and kind of like incorporated little bits of it, but like made their own thing. So this kind of is like basically it's a remake of two, three, and four in a way, except Jason is not supernatural until the very end. I think he might be, maybe we don't know. But what I like about this one is it's a very different Jason. And the Jason in this one is like more like a hunter kind of protecting his territory in a way. Like he makes traps, he has underground tunnels, like he's like smart and it's a different vibe. He's not just this like stalker that's not really thinking about it. He has like a plan. And I like that there are things that I don't like about it, but I also got to look at it in terms of like they're basically creating new canon. And like what I mean by that is like there's Jason basically captures a woman and keeps her captive in his like hole, like chained up, which doesn't make a lot of sense because he's like the Jason we know has never done anything like that
never
before.
do
Like,
that.
why did he not kill her? And like, why is she there? And they kind of like make you think that like, oh, he reminds her of his mother because like there's a locket picture of her when she was a teenager, and that's but that doesn't make any sense either. So it's kind of odd to have him do that, and it's like a plot device, which I could do without that. But other than that, like the kills are really good. I think you want to see all these people get fucked up and killed. Like it's got a lot of good parts to it, and that's yeah, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one has like a great open. It has like five usual trope friends basically hiking by Camp Crystal Lake, and they're really just kind of looking to steal a weed crop. And that's where Clay's sister, Whitney, is. She's hanging out with this initial group. And basically, Jason tears to this group and, like you said, kind of kidnaps Whitney and holds her captive, which again I find very strange given his type of killer he is. He doesn't normally hold people captive. And I mean, to me, again, that felt like very Texas. That's something that would happen in Texas, where they just kind of fuck with you, torture you. I don't know if he was torturing her. I have no idea what was going on. They didn't really make it clear why she was there. But after he basically runs through this group of friends, amazing. A few weeks later, a whole new group of people show up for him to tear through. And I thought that was just a great way to really get like the body count up. And it made a lot of sense. And again, this second group was really, really similar to the group in part four. So they're basically staying at a lake house, and they're there to party, which is exactly what happened in part four. And we know that it's somewhere in the vicinity of Camp Crystal Lake. I don't know how far it was, but it clearly they hiked and found it, so I'm assuming it's within a mile or so. But I thought it was just a great way to really just stack up the kills and the body count. And I think both groups of people had awesome characters that you really just want to see die, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah, like they're like mostly despicable or just like
Yeah.
like they're not over the top annoying, but like they're pretty annoying. And I do like that too. It's like you start off with this one group of people and you're like, okay, these are the people I'm gonna follow for the movie. And they all get wiped out in the first 20 minutes. And you're like, oh shit. Like I didn't see first time I saw that, I didn't see any of that happening where I'm like, whoa, like, okay. And then like you said, they introduce you to a whole new group of people. It's yeah, it's pretty like ballsy way to kind of do a slasher. And what I like too is like they do over the opening credits like show you kind of the scene with Jason's mother getting killed, and it's in like brief snaps. And I like that they didn't spend a lot of time on that. They just kind of like show it really quick. Like instead of like how part two had that 5 minute recap, this like does it in like 30 seconds, and you're like, okay, cool, I got it. So yeah, I really like that. I really liked, the set design was really cool with Jason's like house, I guess, was like super creepy and like fucked up, and they even had like the child's bed that has his name on it. It's just like super, it's just bizarre. It's just really creepy. Um, yeah, I think again, I like the kills in this movie. Nothing overly like super inventive. I feel like they went a little more brutal in this. And there are two versions of this movie. There's like the theatrical cut, and then there's a killer cut, which is like, I think 9 minutes longer, which is the one that I watched recently. And there's a couple of scenes that they added that whatever, but they did increase. There's more nudity, they say, in this version, and there's more like a little bit more brutal on the kills. And I think again, this is like where he like in the old ones he might stab them once, and here he might stab them like 3 or 4 times in some kills, which is like cool to see it kind of ramp up a little bit. It's a little more violent, I think, than some of the other ones.
Yeah, I thought like the set designs were great. And again, it just kind of really reminded me of Texas. And I'm assuming that that's exactly why they got this director. Maybe they wanted something a little more gritty looking and something a little more, I guess, like kind of like deep, kind of looking south, kind of like backwoods type horror, maybe kind of leaning into that a little bit more. And I think he did a great job at capturing it. I think the lighting was amazing in this, and I
It
think
looks
like just
great. This movie looks
yeah,
good.
the colors and everything. It's a great looking film, but it's again it's following like basically like this group of douchebags that are trying to avoid getting killed by Jason. And I think it's really funny that they had like so many elements of like the different films, like it is like a mashup between like the first few. When we first see our first introduction to Jason, he has the sack basically over his head. Um, so he doesn't have the mask yet, and he was moving like really, really quick. And I
That's what I
think
was gonna say. It's a
that's
different Jason. He moves fast in
yeah,
this, which is
he's
scary. Like
it's
that first, that
scary.
opening scene where again he when he captures that girl, like, but you don't know he's capturing her at that point. He comes like hard. You're like, whoa, I never seen Jason move like that before. So you're
Yeah,
like in for something here.
really, really scary and different. And I think that's what really kind of sets this film apart. And the kills were like really inventive and kind of like a throwback to like a lot of 80s stuff, but also pretty modern as well. I mean, obviously, when that girl is like water skiing,
Topless.
yeah, on the boat, which again, throwing out like that gratuitous nudity, she didn't have to be topless, but hey,
No.
it's a slasher film. Why not? Why not throw it in there? And he's sitting there. What does he have? Like a bow and arrow? Like where did he get this equipment from? How long has he been practicing? And he just like nails them essentially with like the bow and arrow. And I thought that was like really inventive, and it was almost like kind of like a throwback to like sleepaway camp a little bit, where the boat's kind of coming in, and I mean, when it hits that girl, I think her name is Chelsea. That's so brutal when you hear like that thud, because like, I mean, honestly, that's like one of my fears in life whenever I'm out on the waters. I don't want to get hit by a boat. And maybe it's just from watching too many horror films, but I mean, I thought that was just like such a brutal part of this film. And then what I liked is when he finds the mask, like he's in the garage and he finds the mask and he runs into that one character. I think his name is Chewie,
Yep.
and he tries to hand him like the hockey stick. And he's like, "Oh, I think this would really set off your outfit and complete it or something like
Chewie the
that."
stoner.
Yeah, I mean that dude's hysterical when he finds like the whiskey cabinet.
Oh yeah, and he's like, he like finds like the really expensive scotch. And he's just like guzzling it. He's like, fuck it.
He's like, this tastes like money, but there's a lot of, I could see right into that cab. There's a lot of Maker's Mark in there, and that's not too expensive. So I don't, but I mean, clearly these people were rich. But yeah, I thought that was like really funny. And then he gets the mask, and again, that's kind of like really similar to like part three, where he all of a sudden now he has the mask, and then he kind of continues with that. I thought a lot of these parts of like they mashed it up, but it makes a lot of sense in this film.
Yeah, and you mentioned douchebags, and there are a bunch of them. And I would
Yeah.
say the character of Trent might be one of the biggest douchebags to ever be in like a slasher movie. And he has some of the best lines ever though in a horror movie. And we quote these all the time, but there's a scene where he's having sex with I can't think of her name. He's
Brie.
having sex with Brie, who Brie might be one of the hottest actresses like I've ever seen, and he has just some really funny lines. Like again, we say this all the time. Like he's like, "Oh, you have such stupendous tits,"
Like what? Like
and then he's like, "Real juicy, bro." It's just he says a couple
oh,
other things that
it's
I
so
wrote down, but I
cringe,
don't
but
want to look over at my computer. But like everything he says like it almost feels like he was just ad-libbing a ton of shit, and they just kept some of it in. And I read that sex scene actually took an entire day to shoot, which again seems overly aggressive to shoot a sex scene for 12 hours, especially this scene. It's like 45 seconds in the movie, but like apparently they shot that all day, and it's a great sex scene. It's one of the best sex scenes in a horror
Oh,
movie because it's
it
funny.
is.
It's fucking
It's
hysterical.
sexy. It's funny. It's like so many things. During the sex scene, his actual girlfriend shows up. She's knocking on the door. Instead of him reacting the way you think he's gonna react, she's like, "Oh shit, get off me." He's like, "Get out of here, bro." He's like, "Leave me
Bro.
alone." And like he's like, he's like mad at his girlfriend for bothering him while he's having sex with this other girl, and
In
it
his
definitely
defense, though, like his girl goes off with that biker guy. What's his name?
Clay,
The guy on the
Clay,
motorcycle. Clay. She
Clay.
goes off with Clay, and I'd be a little pissed too. So, like, I'm sure he treated her not well, but like, she also kind of just like ditched him like for this other like a really hotter guy, on a motorcycle. So, like, kind of fuck her. Like,
I mean, they both had like blonde, kind of feathered looking hair. I mean, I don't
they're both like hot, quote unquote
like
hot.
like there was literally like 1 minute in like 2009 where like every guy looked like that, and they probably also wore like t-shirt, jeans, and like sandals. That was like
Yeah.
the exact
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah, he looks like every
and
guy in like every movie that came out around that time. That's supposed to be like the bad boy, but it's like clearly
yeah.
like you don't look like the bad boy. You kind of look like I'm not gonna say it, but like you don't look like the
I
bad boy.
I think what was really funny is during that sex scene, that other dude, Lawrence, is downstairs,
I know
and
what you're gonna say.
he's like all high and shit, and while they're having sex, this dude decides to like jerk off to like some sort of like sales catalog.
Oh yeah, he's like
It's
he looks like
like
I just need anything, and he's like looking for something, and he finds like the winter catalog, and it's like a girl in like a tight sweater, and he's like, I guess this will have to do, and he's totally about to fucking, and it's what's funny is like he's not even in like his own bedroom, he's
he's
literally
in the
in the
middle of the
living
living
room
room.
where anyone could walk in. He's like, fuck it. And what bothers him is he sees like a moose head on the wall or something, and that's what stops him. Like, out of all the things to stop you, would have been like anybody could walk in, like, but yeah, the
Just
winter
go to your
catalog,
room.
it's hysterical. It's
Yes.
so fucking funny. It's so
Just go
ridiculous.
to your room. But
It's
he was
ridiculous.
that
I love this fucking movie.
desperate. I think what was even funnier than that is when they first show up, and Chewie pulls out this like metal steel briefcase, and inside of it is like some cheap ass acrylic bong.
But they
It's
make it
like,
like it's
dude,
like the best bong ever, you know?
it's like a
Like,
$35 bong,
yeah,
and he
like
like
yeah, they
has
make
it
it
in
like
his
it's gold.
metal suitcase, and they're all freaking out about it. But it was really fun. I mean, and I guess that's a lot, like, a lot of comedic relief right there when they're making like this is a piece of gold, but it was like some cheap ass bong, and he's making fun of that guy Lawrence. He's like, I saw you with a bull the other night, It's like
You're
a
cheating on
bull.
Lucille or whatever they call her.
Yeah, that's it. I think that was the name. Yeah, that was so fun. But
But getting into like the brutality of this movie too, and like one thing in particular that like I wrote down a note about because I thought it was pretty wild. It's like there's a scene. It's like in the first part of the movie where one of the females gets like tied up in a sleeping bag, and he Jason ties her up over the fire. And what's crazy about it is she's probably screaming for a minute. Like it's not quick. It's not like she's just like hit over the head. She's like burning alive, and like her boyfriend's like caught in a bear trap and is like watching this whole thing. And if you look at all the Friday the 13th movies, this might be maybe the most brutal thing to happen in any of them, really. It's fucked up. Like again, she's being burned alive for a long period of time while her boyfriend's watching and is helpless. It's so fucked up. It's a different Jason. Very different Jason.
I mean, she's basically like a barbecue at this point. I did think the bear trap was a little bit of a banana peel. It's like, what are the chances of this guy running to go save his girlfriend, and he happens to perfectly place his foot in the center to set off a bear trap, which is probably a foot wide, and he's running across a field. I mean, that always annoys me.
Yeah, I could suspend disbelief there because Jason is a hunter. Like he's probably thought about where this guy could run, but you're right. I never really thought about it, but
Every time someone gets stuck in a bear trap, I'm like, it's got to be one in a million. It has to be one in a million. A bear trap doesn't take up that much real estate,
no, you're right. You're right.
and you're outdoors. You're literally outdoors. If you were setting up a bear trap, you would put a bear trap where you have your food. There'd be like, a reason why a bear would walk exactly there. But this guy running across the field and stepping, not and he didn't step on it, he stepped in it.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
would
you're right.
like that's the only thing that bothered me. But yes, that was probably one of the most brutal kills. And then when she falls out of the bag
Oh,
and you
yeah.
kind of see her like charred up, ugh, I think there's some smoke coming off of her. She looks like she was just cooked. Ugh, it was
But what's
nasty.
great, it's like the guy who got caught in the bear trap, he's like fucking the girl that got burned alive, right? And it's pretty graphic, like sex scene, I would say, for
Yeah.
for a movie. And there's someone kind of creeping outside, which is Jason, and like the girl wants him to go investigate. And he's like, "So what? Let him watch." And then she's like, "No." She's like, "Go out and check who it is." He's like, "I'm not going out there with a boner." You know? It's so funny. Like, who says that shit? I
I
fuck.
mean, I mean, that's
I would
real
have went
talk,
out there.
though. That's
Fuck it.
real
You know.
talk. I
Like,
don't know. Yeah.
I
I don't
wouldn't have
want to.
cared.
I don't want to confront my friend in that condition. I don't know. It's a little. I yeah,
I
I
love
felt
it.
that. Like you didn't care. You didn't care, but I felt that. I felt that moment. I'm
I thought it
like, you
was
know what,
funny.
man? I'm like, how about we do chill here for a minute and let me like reset because I don't want to go out there like this and talk to like my dude and be like, yeah.
Another note I had is this movie actually did do pretty well at the box office, and they were going to make a sequel to it, but Paramount, who put out the first one, ended up shelving it because they were about to put out Aronofsky's Mother, which they had a
Mm,
big bet on, and like we don't have enough money to release both theatrically, so they bet on that one, and that one ended up being like a bomb, and then they just never ended up making it. It just too much time passed. They just never ended up doing it. And again, I'm an Aronofsky fan. That movie Mother is fucking terrible.
mm,
I would have much rather had another Friday the 13th movie than that movie
hell
because it's
yeah.
just awful. But I thought it was interesting. It's like, and then it's just, time passes and people move on. And I'm sure they probably will make, I know there's like I think they're going to do like a Crystal Lake TV series on Paramount Plus coming up soon. We'll see how, I could care less at this point, but maybe it's good. We'll give it a chance. I'm sure at some point they'll make another Friday the 13th movie, but they have not in, fuck, like what? Like, when was 2009? I can't do math because I'm hammered. 16 years
It's
ago?
like long, I was nine, like 16 years ago. Yeah. Holy cow.
Seems
That's,
crazy they haven't made another one since then, right? You'd think like they have no ideas. They keep remaking shit. Like, why not? Like, how hard is it to make a Friday the 13th movie?
I mean, honestly, like horror hit hard like in 2001, 2002, 2003. It's like it had like consecutive years right now. I mean, 2021, 2022, 23. Had like consecutive years where like horror has been like topping the box office. Had they not see that and at least start getting something in production, the
It
last
must be
probably.
really difficult, like the rights, or there must be some reason because you think it'd be it can't be that complicated to make like another Friday the 13th movie, but especially if you just do a money grab, like you could make it good or you could do a money grab, and they haven't. I'm glad they haven't. Like, I'm glad they haven't done the money grab, but they could. So there'll be one at some point, and I guess they'll probably wait to see how the TV series does, right? Like, if that does well, then they're absolutely going to make another one.
I mean, you would hope
We don't
so.
need it, but like,
I mean, I would love to see one. I would love to see like, like a new edition. But you know what? They're probably gonna ruin it, so maybe
I'm
not,
sure. Yeah, like the fact that this remake is so good is
Yeah, they're
like
not gonna make this
wild.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like because you
they're
want to hate on it, you want to think like no, because like, but it's good. I stand by this movie. I think it's a good movie, and I think what does help is it has enough nods to Friday the 13th, but it also is kind of doing its own thing, and it does its own thing pretty well. And again, there's flaws in this movie. There's definitely things that I wish they did different, mostly around the Clay character and his sister. Like I could do without all of that. It's like it kind of I don't really care about that part of the movie. I like the rest of it. So it's not a perfect movie for me, but I would say I like this more than most of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just hard to look at, like, the look past the visual of this film. It's just a gorgeous, easy film to watch. The night scenes look amazing, and you really get sucked up in the atmosphere. It is scary, and they are creeping around in the dark, but it looks great. You could basically see everything that's going on, and it's scary, and you don't know, where Jason is. I think it was so cool, like in that one scene where he's like standing up on like the roof, basically, of the house, kind of looking down at everyone, and they just kind of showed like quick kind of glimpses that he was up there. It's like, man, how did he get up there? But it just looked like so menacing that he was already there, and he was already on to like his next thing when they were kind of still dealing with like their friend that got killed. He was already moving on to like how he's going to get to like the next person. And I thought that was like really cool. And then what I really liked is, of course, when the rainstorm begins, which is definitely a nod to part two and to part four, and he throws the girl out out the window, and she crashes, into the police car, which again is, we just talked about that in part four, which was probably the most dramatic kill in part four. It was crazy in this one as well, because that douchebag was like sitting in the cop car, and that girl he just like had sex with basically just comes through the window, and it was
Stupendous
like,
tits right on the
yeah.
windshield.
I mean, it was funny because we know the conversation that he just had, but it was also, um, kind of gory as well. So I mean, that was an awesome moment of this film. When he does kill that guy Lawrence with like that axe throw. I mean, that was just so sick, man. It's like this dude's gonna get away. He's gonna
And he
make it.
uses him
He's
as
gonna make
bait
it.
too, which I think was really cool. He
Yep.
hadn't done that in a movie before, which I thought was super interesting.
That's it, man. Bait, killer bait for the bait, basically. I mean, he
All
was
right,
just
so I have like just a couple of sips left in this 40. I
a
can't believe I
little
got
bit
through it, but
left
I
here.
did it. So let's wrap this one up because I gotta finish this because this is fucking disgusting. So what do you rate this movie 0 to 5?
Can't see what I have left here.
I
I
got
love this
nothing. I got
film.
nothing.
Yeah, I got a little bit more than you. Hold on a second. Let me catch up. Let me get into this
All right,
mic
you
real
catch
quick.
up. I'm gonna just like sit back and think about those stupendous tits. Damn, that was a big
All right.
sip.
Yeah, I caught up.
All
Okay.
right, so what do you rate this one?
So I like this one a lot. This is definitely in heavy rotation at times between 4, 5, and probably this one. I watch them all the time. I like this film a lot. I'm giving this one, I'm gonna match my other one, 4.5.
I'm giving it a 4. Love this movie. Again, there's big chunks of it that I could kind of do without, but I do like this movie a lot. I am giving it a 4, so let's drink to that.
Woo,
Cheers.
cheers. Finish this bad boy up.
Mm. Oh my God, I
All
almost
right.
threw up on that last
Oh
sip. Oh, that's
man.
so disgusting.
Oh wow, that was brutal. I don't know what we were thinking.
I'm not doing 40s for a very long time.
Oh my
All right,
God.
so that's our Friday the 13th episode. Happy Friday the 13th. Jerry, what's up? What's up next for us?
Well, believe it or not, man, we're down to our final episode of season one.
Hell
That's it.
yes.
We're gonna wrap it up with a Creepmas cocktail party and talk about some holiday horrors with a guest podcast joining us. So that should be a lot of fun.
Super fun, super stoked for that, and we're gonna talk about some Christmas horror movies. Yeah, we'll see you all soon. So cheers.
Yeah, happy Friday the 13th. See you all
All
later.
right, cheers.